Good morning.
Good morning.
Today is March 6th, 2024. The time is now 9 a.m. I'm Kevin Day, Chair of the Custer County Board of Commissioners. I will call this meeting to order. If you do have your cell phones, if you could silence them at this time, that would be great. And if you would join us for the pledge and the invocation. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me for the invocation. O God, our Heavenly Father, as we convene today's Board of Commissioners meeting, grant us in all our doubts and uncertainties the grace to ask you what you would have us to do, that the spirit of wisdom may save us from all false choices, and that in your light we may see light, and in your straight path we may not stumble. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, we get a roll call, please.
Commissioner Day,
Here.
Commissioner Kanda.
Here.
Commissioner F,
Present.
County Attorney Dan Slater.
Here.
And Clerk to the Board Kelly Camper present.
And audience introductions, and we'll start right here.
I'm Roger Gregg, citizen.
Extraordinaire.
I'm Marcy Gray,
James Gilbert.
Nadine Peterson.
Len Arrigo. Bill Parker. Jim Chaplin.
Okay, and we do have few people online. We've got Darla, Deb, Jeff, John, and a phone number. So if anybody goes to speak later, please identify yourself for the record. Any amendments to the agenda?
None from me, sir.
None from me either.
None here either. So we have minutes from January 10th, January 17th, and February 29th.
I move we accept the minutes as written for January 10th, 17th, and February the 29th.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion?
None from me, sir.
Okay.
No.
Those in favor of approving the minutes for January 10th, 17th, and 29th, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. That motion carries. Commissioner items, let's start with you, Commissioner Kanda.
Okay, a couple things, just to let you know, because you saw the email, we do have the underfunded courts grant, the wrap up. And the money that we spent with RJA through November, it's been paid. I found that we've got RJA to send that back to us. We can close out the books on that. He's got the final report and the rendering of what we have to present, and this could be used for the next year's effort on where we go forward. So we'll be bringing that up later. Been working with the airport. The crack seal is completed. They're working, fixing it and restriping the areas that have been damaged. So we'll be working at, and you'll hear about that in their report. And the Upper Arkansas Water Conservancy District is having their meeting today and tomorrow, I think, to vote on a new manager for the district. That'll occur. They've moved their meeting to the 15th. I'll probably attend that meeting on Friday. And the TV is still in work. They're getting me a schedule on the repair now that they've got it tested. So we'll figure out and let everybody know. I've been getting some more calls on when it will be up. So we'll see what the schedule.
Well,
Yeah, I bet you have. So that's still in work, and they did get the testing on all the new equipment, and they'll be installing that in the shed that we've got. And in May, we'll be replacing that in May and June timeframe with the cabinet. Keep you up to date on that, and that's all I got for now.
you're
Board of Health. Probably need to schedule one. I think we maybe missed it,
No, actually, we didn't, but.
or did we not have it scheduled?
We didn't have it. We did that on purpose, but we do need to get it scheduled. So.
Would the last Wednesday of the month, 27th, that
Yeah.
afternoon, would that work?
Yep.
And I'll get that on the schedule. And talk to Dr.
Yeah,
Brown about it.
I talked to Dr. Brown about too. So chomping at the bit.
Yeah,
Got a couple things to bring up.
You want that at 1 or 1:30?
we'll do 1:30,
1:30.
please. Other than that, that's all I had.
All right. I would mention that, we did, interviews yesterday for the BOCC admin PIO position. That will be on the agenda for next Wednesday, for a decision on that. So, that's basically all I've got today as well. So. Mr. Slater, have you got anything?
I do not.
All right. Kelly,
Nothing, thanks.
Except you were busy last night, I hear.
Yeah,
Right over here.
almost 10.
well, that's an early
Very
one.
smooth sailing though, so that was good.
Okay. Unfinished business. Commissioner Epps.
All right, so finance report, ongoing separation of HR and finance responsibilities between the two departments. Starting to transition all the insurances, risk management claims, personnel files, employee classification. HR parts of payroll, employee benefits, all that from the finance into the HR department under Robert Smith, and he will introduce himself here, about halfway through this meeting, or at least halfway through the agenda anyway. HR director has been able to sit through a presentation on Paycheck's comprehensive package from, recruitment to retirement. The next presentation from ADP is set for March 14th. And they're gonna go through their basic package of payroll processing. Upcoming CIC training and payroll, personnel and AP modules for Jen and Robert and other staff that need some training or refreshing is coming up, I think. Next week, Wednesday or Thursday. I don't have a specific date on that, but I think that's what it is. ARPA funds remaining, 206,982. 6,000 yet to be committed. We got 6,000 that was sent back from the Wetmore volunteer. Yes, thank you. That needs to be committed by end of year 24. Or all of that amount does by end of year 24 needs to be committed, needs to be spent by end of year 25. LATCF funds, digging through the money already spent, around a rough figure of just under 65K, just under 50 to the recycle, and around 15 to BSO. And then digging through the meeting minutes.
Quick, before you do that, on LATCF funds, so that's all that was actually committed. We had flagged other projects, but you didn't see any record of that.
Well, I'm looking through the meeting minutes.
So, oh, you know, that's what you're doing now.
Yeah. So I'm digging through the meeting minutes because there was what got put down and what was is now what I'm seeing in some meeting minutes may look different. So I would just want to go through the minutes and make sure that we're matched up with what was decided. So we'll get that together. We'll put a spreadsheet of everything that's been earmarked or committed. And it looks like there's some meeting minutes that talk about, you guys would have more history on this than I do as of yet, but that it was gonna go into a fund to match other grants. So, I gotta find out what had come in when those motions were made. And if all the money was in, or if you guys were earmarking future money. So I need to go back through those meeting minutes and find out what decisions were made on that.
Yeah, get us the dates of what you find, and I can look in our notes too, or my notes.
Okay, the 200,000 of the ARPA funds, that last 200,982 was earmarked for workforce housing or attainable housing, whatever you want to call it. So we'll get where we're at with the LATCF and then decide what we want to do there.
Redesignate.
May have to, if we can't get it spent by, or committed by the end of the year. Lisa from Redlands Consulting is working from her office and preparing policies and procedures along with internal controls. To
Mike,
begin,
what's her full name? That would be good to have.
Haman, Heman, something like that, Hemann. To begin eliminating the issues we have within our finance department and between the departments and the finance department. We've been sending her information, as she is gathering up for cleaning up year 23 ledgers and starting to get us ready for the 23 audit. We've already sent an email out to all staff. Here's kind of what you need. Let's start working on it. Let's start gathering it up. Some of the departments have reported back to Vernon about what they need and asking specific questions. So we'll keep working on that. Vernon's currently working on the following, within CIC, the payroll module, the personnel module, and the time clock module all had discrepancies and they weren't matching up on the back end. So it caused some of our glitches to happen with processing payroll, why people's paychecks were getting messed up. So we're gonna go through that and we're gonna clean that all up. So all the information is the same all the way through. Then he started going back through the UMB credit card statements to see where we started carrying balances, which department wasn't paying for their charges, or what other reasons for not making those timely full payments. And then we're gonna start going back through the Kirkpatrick credit cards from the time we started carrying balances there.
You don't know what that time is yet?
I don't know. I have not looked past 22. Starting in 22, we already carried over balance from 21.
Yeah,
So one task at a time.
and that would be with both banks actually then, right?
Yeah, that's correct. But we're gonna start with UMB first because that's what we're currently using. Kirkpatrick's been stopped fully, so
Mhm.
no cards there. Any questions? From you guys?
Nope, but Bob was hovering,
Who?
Bob Smith.
Oh, is he? Oh, well, we'll introduce him.
Yeah.
He probably heard his name.
Yeah, he did.
Or he piqued up his interest.
Yeah. See, here he comes.
I think he's got.
There he is.
must-
Well, I guess he can introduce himself.
Come on
now,
out here,
I guess if
So
we
they can see you.
want to amend the agenda.
So this is Bob Smith.
Robert Smith.
and,
He is our new
He goes
HR.
by Bob. Then our new HR, and why don't you give him the two-second spiel?
So human resources, risk management, and experience, probably for 22 years. Almost exclusively for city and county government. There was a short stints for a bank. Working with all of the departments and elected officials that are typical, including Custer County. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're really glad to have him because of that experience. We're really lucky, actually, and he's a resident here in the valley, been here how many years, Bob?
No, he's
Or
not.
not a resident, I'm sorry.
Well,
What am I saying? I got him mixed up with with our BOCC. He,
Oh,
my family, my wife and I, and my family live in Canyon City, so I commute.
yeah, he commutes out.
That's the thumbnail, the pinky size of, so glad to be here. I'm open to, been meeting, going around to departments, meeting the employees. So they can know who I am and open up to go over questions. It's been going well, and met over, so. I'm open for any questions that you have that you're glad to answer anything I can.
Welcome to the team.
Thank you, glad to be here. Hoping I'm making a,
You will make a difference, there's no doubt about it.
trying to make a contribution right out the gate, so.
Thank you
very
Robert.
much, sir.
Okay.
Got a question in the back.
Go ahead, sir.
Before you move on, could I ask a question of clarification?
Sure.
Bill Parker. I was operating under the impression, when we were bringing in the financial consultant, that she would be here and for the first week would kind of look over the landscape, find out what many of the low hanging fruit, if you will, was, what the issues and problems were. And then she would come back here, and your original resolution or proposal was that we would pay her, I think, $5,000 for that week. But then there would be a phase two, and she would come back with a go forward plan, what she was going to try to accomplish and an estimated cost for that. I haven't heard anything about phase two. We seem to have moved into it without introducing it, if you will. Am I mistaken, or are we operating under a new process?
No, so she did come out for the week. She gave us, she talked to most of the department heads and elected officials. And she put her memo to us together, of what she found, and then I gave that, I think, last week's meeting. And then she sent us a proposal Sunday for, right now it's at $7,000 a month for the rest of the year. And that would be taking care of everything through 25 years budget. What I want to discuss with these gentlemen and have them look at it, because they've just barely had time to look at this document, is take it down to one project at a time to a certain degree. Let's get through 23's ledgers. Let's get that, and let's get prepared for the 23 audit and make that one project. And then go into 24's ledger, getting those started cleaning up. And then if we need to, go into 25-year budget, because that'll be right around the corner before we know it, so.
So we're gonna have phase 2 and 3 and 4.
Yes, sir.
basically,
Yes, sir.
Of this project.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and there has not been a letter of engagement for phase two yet at all, so. Go ahead, Nadine.
Okay, question, Nadine Peterson. So with this procedures that she's writing up right now, is that to fix the issues of the 22?
That is to fix all the issues as to why we've gotten into these audit issues, period, all the way back to 2011. No internal controls, policies and procedures lacking.
And I think that's what he meant when he said Nadine 23, clear, you can't go forward and with 23 until you fix all those other problems. And that's how, that's a restatement of what he just said. And we have to fix them, we can't, otherwise they're no good. The future audits. By the way, she's still planning to do an internal audit before we turn anything over to our auditor. Right?
Absolutely. She's gonna help us get prepared for that 23 audit before we go to Mr. Donardo.
And the good news is that's what she did for a living, but it was mostly with school systems and some government.
She worked with some government stuff. She said that the good thing about you guys is that your total budget is less than some counties' small projects. So
She's used to diving through a lot.
So
of
she's like, the amount of ledger lines you have is way less than what she's dealt with, so. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what about the leases? Have they been corrected?
So we've gathered up everything that we think we have for the leases. That made the #1 hit on the audit. And we've got those down to Sam DiNardo, and I'm still waiting on him to tell us whether we've got all the information or not. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have Lisa start going through those and make sure that it's good for at least 23. So, yeah, 23.
fixing all the problems.
And so, and taking that.
Lisa's gonna fix their leases?
Yeah, so it was gathering up the information was the #1 thing. That was the hit we took. We didn't provide all the documents for all these lease payments we were making. We were making lease payments, right, in our ledger, and we couldn't show that we had a lease. Why are we paying this Xerox? Where's the lease for it? And we couldn't produce that information. Because we didn't have it all gathered up in one place. What didn't belong in the finance department like it should have. And then she's gonna start going through the amortization tables of all those as well, so. And help us out there with 23 and 24, so. Yes, sir.
Okay, so when it comes to leases in GASB 87, the audit said you were not complying with GASB 87. And I think I gave you a recipe on how you did that, Lucas, that first thing you have to do is you have to gather all the leases, exactly how you booked them, and you have to reverse every one of those entries. And when you get done reversing those entries, the first step for every individual lease is to take the lease payments, take the individual lease. You take the lease payments, convert them to the present value to determine the value of the lease. And then you have to create an amortization schedule. One, there's two tables there. One is to separate interest from principal when you book those on a monthly basis. And then the second table is to book amortization expense. Okay, so that's not a trivial effort. So the question is, I don't think Sam DiNardo can do that and remain independent.
I'm not asking Sam to do that.
Okay, so what is the purpose of, I mean, one, what is the purpose of giving Sam DiNardo all of the leases? What's he gonna do with them? And then who's gonna do the process of conforming to GASB 87? Because that's not trivial, and that has to be done for 22.
I gave him the lease information that he had requested from us. Cause we didn't have any of that up front with it.
Okay, that still doesn't answer my question as far as how you need to correct 2022 by booking leases in accordance with GASB 87, which, like I say, it's not trivial because you've got to reverse everything you've done prior, and then you've got to create all these tables, if you will, to then book them correctly.
Well, I'll be speaking with Lisa with Redlands about that.
I know that Lynn, you brought up a good point. I think when you were here, she is familiar with GASB 87.
Yeah, she is.
And so, and I think that's what you told me the other day, Lucas, is that that's why she's doing the amortization schedule. She's got to figure that out, get the present value and then enter it. So that's going to be her task. That's probably part of what she's going to present, I hope.
It's part of everything that
Yeah.
we gotta
Have her do that.
Right.
And the reason I'm asking that is because maybe I'm misinterpreting, but it sounds like she's working on preparing 23 for audit, and 22 is
Yeah.
not prepared. yet.
Let me
It's not done.
let me restate it, Lenny, because that's what he said. In order to prepare 23, she has to fix 22, and he pointed out clear back to 2011. She's taking it clear back,
Okay.
bringing that forward in order to prepare the 23. She
That's
needs
good
to do
news.
that. That's how she stated it, and
That's good
that's how
news.
she's proposing this phase, whatever it's called now. 2 or whatever.
Do you wanna give the new attendance?
The new one.
Attendance.
All right,
Who's
yes,
next?
I will do that now. If you were not here to introduce yourself when we did audience introductions, could you now identify yourself, please?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Daryl Wellen.
Joy Anderson,
He's good.
Dorothy Carson.
I think that's everybody here. I believe,
Do we have enough chairs? There's more chairs we can get
I
in.
think the ones
Yeah,
online are
there's
the
some
same.
Go through that door.
through
There's
that door. There's a few more. Yeah, there's stacks.
I don't need a new two.
Could you get a,
Yeah, I think
I
so.
don't need two.
There's, oh, right there. And here's another guy coming. Thank you, Joseph.
you betcha.
wanna,
Go ahead.
we can bring in a couple chairs. We ought to probably bring them in.
It's somewhere down, but I can move.
Daryl.
Could we have you identify yourself for the record, please?
Sure.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Okay, that will take us on to the new business, and the first item on new business would be a hearing on the zoning resolution changes.
It's not quite 9:30.
Oh, we will take a short recess until 9:30 because we did have that posted for 9:30. So
Take 4 minutes.
give us we will not start that hearing until 9:30.
I'm gonna do.
I will reconvene this Board of County Commissioners meeting. And we have a hearing scheduled for 9:30 on the zoning resolution changes. And so I will convene that at this point.
Where was that short? Email?
What's that?
That short version said it was sent.
It came to you, sir, March 5th at 5:48 PM. And I believe there's been some copies passed out here, and this was also available online on the website. Dorothy, would you like to present on this?
Well, Dorothy. Hi. How's everybody this morning? Good morning.
Be back.
Good morning.
Hanging in here.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, hi, whoops.
Morning, Dan.
Morning.
We also have members of the planning commission here.
Yes.
So thank you, gentlemen, for being here.
The first changes will be on page 7. I sent out a packet that has just the changes, the pages with the changes in it. A lot of the changes are just changing will to shall, just simple grammatical changes that we made. The first one is on page 7 where we changed where it talks about the resolution when it was changed. We put those in date order, so not a big change. We didn't change anything other than changing the order that they were listed in the resolution. The next change is on page 13. It's under amendments to the zoning map. Basically, we changed the post where it talks about the postage. It will be the cost of 7% rather than 20% of the application fee. So if they'll be charged the cost of postage if it goes 7% above the application fee rather than 20%. Sorry, got tickle. Second, the next change is on page 17 under accessory dwellings. We just noted in there, we did not in the past have accessory dwellings, and that is something that is becoming rapidly a thing that the country is going to, is allowing a second dwelling on the home. And we have added that to the resolution, and the definition to that will be the same as a guest house. Page 18. Under bedroom, we added the definition of a bedroom, we added an outside egress. Most bedrooms, most rooms that are being used for sleeping should have an outside egress. We're a non-code county, so that's not mandated. But we added that to the definition of a bedroom. It can be either of those 5 things listed to define a bedroom. In breezeway, we added that a breezeway is just a definition, a roofed outside passage. The next change is on page 19. We have eliminated bunkhouse. We will change that to it's a guest house or a second dwelling. Container, we just put in C, enclosed structure, accessory structure closed. So it's basically this definition of a closed accessory building or structure. The county use tax, it had a lot more definition there. We just kind of cleaned that up a little bit and put the definition of county use tax as county use tax on building materials, period. And then that is really how the Department of Revenue defines use tax. On page 30, we've changed when we are at, would propose to change when the intent to become a member of either the BZA or the Planning Commission, it needs to be turned into the Planning and Zoning Office by the last business day of November rather than December.
It's on page 30, you said?
Yes, sir.
Page 8 for
E.
you.
I said, I was looking at page
Oh.
30 here and then,
Yeah, so
If
if you
you-
scroll up on that page,
E.
right there at the top.
Oh, there it is. I got it. Why don't you just refer to the letters, or can help a little bit, like letter E.
Okay.
Something that focuses.
Under membership, letter B, we've changed to 7 members plus 2 associate members. And that's what we've always, the planning commission has had in the past historically. It's just defining it a little bit clearer. Under 6, no person shall serve as a member of the planning commission who serves whose service or affiliation to other organization is in direct conflict with the role of a voting member of the planning commission and may constitute a conflict of interest. Really, basically what that's doing is cleaning up and saying, if you have any type of conflict of interest, anything that you could gain by being a part of the planning commission or the BZA, that would disqualify you from being on the board. Completely eliminated number 17 or number 7, in the event of the death of or resignation or removal of a member or associate member. We're taking that portion out and let's see. Variances shall be, or vacancies shall be filled for unexpired terms in the same manner as in the case of an original appointment. So it basically just taking out the definition of the reason why someone may be removed, shortening a little bit and making it a little bit clearer. Completely removing number 8 upon a permanent vacancy in the seated member of the planning commission. Really that falls under number 7 now, just by cleaning that up. And you guys can stop me if you have any questions. Page 33, throughout the whole entire packet, we changed calendar days to days. It's just days, not calendar days. It was simpler or something. They decided just to take the verbiage out of there, so.
But the meaning is still calendar days.
Yes.
It's not 30 work days or 30,
It's just
it's
days.
30 days.
Yeah. They just didn't feel like they needed that in there since that's the definition.
No, I appreciate that.
Page 34, number 13, when the chairman calls for a vote, each member shall, and I believe it didn't have shall in there, shall render their vote. And it used to say after the votes are verified, each member may. They just took that verbiage out of there. It basically each, after they render their vote, they will give a verbal statement explaining their vote. And that's important so that I can log that information and give that to you to all make an informed decision based on what their thoughts were. Number 4 is the same as we were talking about. If there's a conflict of interest
For where?
for the number 4,
I gotta scroll.
B,
There's a lot of fours.
it's okay.
You
We
forgot
did have a
A1.
change on A1.
A1,
Oh, sorry, I skipped right over it.
A1.
A1. Let's see, what is that?
It was shortened to
It's-
4.3G.
It's just changing the reference. So we made a change, probably eliminated that portion or 4.3H in 6 and 7, and it's now 4.3.G because of the elimination of one of the bullet items.
Right.
And then under B, membership, and this is specifically for the BZA, it's written the same as with the planning commission, and I kind of spoke about both of them earlier. The verbiage is the same. If any member shall have a conflict with any type of affiliation or other organization, they would be disqualified from being on either one of the boards. And again, we took out number 5 below that, where it talks about a permanent vacancy and kind of cleaned that up a little bit. There was no need to have that in there.
Presumably all these will be renumbered automatically.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Mary's got that all underhand, so.
Quick question on
Yes.
this one and the one on the planning commission. Is this for individual instances or as a whole, as far as the conflict of interest? Because you may be serving and not have a conflict and then a conflict comes up. So this is for individual instances.
It's my understanding it's as a whole, is that correct, Keith? It would be,
Correct. I mean, it would basically be as a whole for an appointment.
Okay,
I mean, on individual cases, you know, you could still have a recusal because of a conflict of interest.
okay. Thank you for that.
page 35 under the vacancies, again, it's the same, where number 8, where it talks about vacancies shall be filled. They basically just put in for the expired portion of the member or the associate member's term. So in other words, if for the example, when Keith came forward and became our chairman, he took over a portion of what that term that was left and filled that and then was voted in the next year.
And that was 8 on
Yes.
page 35.
Yes. So now we're on number 9 on page 36. When the chairman calls for a vote, each seated member, it's the same for the BZA as the planning commission. They shall render their vote. We took out after all votes are verified, each member may, and we added after they've rendered their vote, give a verbal statement explaining their vote. On page 37, number 6 is we took out calendar days or calendar and just have days there. And again, that's throughout the whole document. On page 38, number 8, when a chairman calls for a vote, again, it's the same thing, just for the BZA. They'll give a verbal statement explaining their vote. On H2, removal of the word calendar. On page 39, the same thing. It's on page 39, letter L. It's removing the word calendar. On page 41, number 1, oral nominations, we added in, let's see, elections will be conducted by oral nomination and seconded with a written nomination. And this is concerning
Written ballot.
when we're voting in members, I believe. I'm skipping around. I don't have the whole thing here.
It's actually for voting for chairman and vice chairman.
Thank you. And then on 3, they removed the second line there. They were suggesting to remove appointment and change it to office term. And then the office term will be for 1 year or until a that we've added or until a successor is elected. And before it was the number 5 there, we've completely eliminated that item. It will not, instead of it being the secretary is acting as the chairman until the chairman's elected, the chairman will select someone as it's written on number 6. So he'll appoint somebody to be his impartial assistant until the elections are done, and then he will take over the meeting. He or she. Number C, notify adjacent property owners. We're just normally when we send out notifications to property owners, if it's an SUP or an STR, we do it within 300 feet of the boundaries of that subject parcel. We just took that out of there. It's any adjacent landowners, any adjacent property owners and or agencies that may be affected by the request. Just kind of cleaning that up and making it a little bit more defined. Under section 6, page 49, 6.1, the third paragraph down, we've added the verbiage to say vault septic system shall be pumped at least annually with receipt provided to the planning and zoning office. And then we've also added at the last paragraph, No disposal of waste, black or gray water is permitted onto the ground, creeks, streams, or bodies of water. Page 51. Under guest house, their suggestion is to add F, can be a modular site-built home, and really it could be before, it's just clarifying that, adding that in to clarify it. G is an addition, cannot be used as an STR, individually permitted, unless individually permitted. And then we refer section 9.10 for short-term rental permit to follow that process. Number 3 is eliminating the definition of a bunkhouse. And again, that would just be, we would classify that as multi-dwelling or, yes. The use of recreational occupancy. Recreational occupancy of recreational vehicles, tents, teepees, yurts. So basically, we've added recreational vehicles in there. That verbiage was not in there. We took out that are not self-contained, that they can be occupied instead of 14 days, it's simply 90 days. Kind of clears that up a little bit. I think that was some of the feedback from the commissioners during the workshop that we had. Take removal of item D must be used for human habitation. I mean, they can have their RV parked on there. It doesn't necessarily, it just doesn't need, that line item doesn't necessarily need to be there. Kind of self-explanatory. So because we added recreational vehicles up above, we really don't need item F below there to define the recreational vehicles again. Recreational occupancy of tents, it's up above, so it's kind of redundant. Page 52, number 3 is breezeways. We felt that there was a need to define what a breezeway is. A breezeway must adhere to height requirements, must adhere to setback requirements, not permitted between habitation structures. So basically what that's saying is you can't build 2 homes and connect it by an open breezeway and consider that one dwelling.
So enclosed breezeway would be all 4 walls. And they wanted to make it, what would happen if they enclosed the breezeway?
I believe that would be fine. We'll clarify that if it was an enclosed breezeway.
Breezeway then if you had walls on.
They could actually connect 2 houses together.
Hey, Dorothy.
There's no breeze. Can
Oh, use that one.
It's a breezeless word.
Breezeless way, but I'm just pointing out that
You gotta put a
it
window.
would make it 1 house or 1 dwelling.
It would if it was completely enclosed.
Well,
I've litigated that before, actually, and where someone tried that and it didn't work.
Call it one house.
the window.
Say it again, Keith.
The enclosed breezeway.
Okay, if they actually built 2 houses, put a breezeway between them, and then call it one house.
Yeah, I understand that, but if they decided a month later to enclose that breezeway, can they call it 1 house?
That's what we're trying to prevent.
I know, that's so,
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, but
I will tell you, someone tried that in one of my towns and we fought it and won.
Because you're not allowed to have the breezeway in the first place, yet alone enclose it
Between
2 habitations.
Between one habitable structure and another habitable structure,
you
it
can,
already says you cannot have a breezeway.
okay.
And really, all they would need to do is come in and apply for a multi-dwelling permit.
That's-
And do it.
That'd be easy.
Do the proper permitting, have it go
Yeah.
through the BZA.
I want somebody to game it, and it sounds like it's.
So just to make a little follow-up, just so everybody's aware of that too. Say you have a house and you have an external bedroom where you've remodeled something and just made an external bedroom. Is that allowed to have a breezeway? Because that's not an additional residence.
It's still an ADU.
Okay. So that would be not permitted as well.
Right, because it would be a habitable structure.
Okay,
Yeah, it's not a shed.
go ahead.
Okay, that's good conversation. Page 53, number F is just putting a definition in there for illuminated signs. All illuminated signs which shall be placed so as to prevent the light rays from being cast upon residential dwellings or from interfering with traffic or safe operation of vehicles. Signs must be illuminated from a light source which shall not blink, flash, or vary in intensity. Signs shall not be animated, oscillated, rotated, move, or have an illusion of motion. Beacons or searchlights shall not be permitted for advertising purposes. But in the past, we did not have that definition for illuminated signs, and seems to be something that people are seeking out a little bit more, and we thought that would be a good thing to add. On to section 7, page 55. We're looking at 7.1, number 5. Just adding the definition or the bullet point of breezeway connecting a residence to a non-habitable structure. And that's just saying these are the common regulations throughout all zoning districts. So the use tax is something that we changed based on the way we were doing our pricing. It's been working. We just added the verbiage into the resolution to define that. And it doesn't change anything than what we've been doing in the past. So use tax, the county use tax of 2% shall be collected at the time of the issuance of any permit or septic permit. Use tax will be based on the estimated building materials purchases prior to or during construction. And again, nothing changes in here than what we've been doing in the past. We've not had any issues I'm aware of where we weren't able, if someone had a question, we weren't able to take care of that issue for them. It's been working very, very well.
Just a quick question.
Mhm.
I know it came up when we discussed this in the workshop. If they don't follow through with their, and they've already paid it, how do you reimburse them? Is that covered in? You did decide to keep it,
Their permit is still valid.
but they decided not to go through with them, with it, then maybe they left town and they decided not to build it on it.
Well, I think at that point, since the permit is still valid, that's been paid for, then the person that comes in and purchases that property also purchases that permit and won't pay it again.
No, not the permit. I'm talking about the use tax that you've charged them for the building materials up front that they never purchased.
But because it's part of, I don't know, that's a damn question, I guess. Do we legally have to reimburse them for that? I don't know.
No, they didn't,
I-
they didn't spend the money, they didn't buy it.
I think in our last conversation, in the very rare situations where that's happened, you've refunded the money.
You'd refund the money.
I can do
So
that.
that's, I mean, I
Do we
think that's
wanna
what
add
you've
that?
said. You've said that's what you've done in the past.
I haven't ever given them a refund. I apologize. if I
They
said
should get a
that.
refund.
They haven't asked for one. I haven't had anybody ask for one.
Somebody spent $1,000 and didn't want it back.
If I would
think
work
we're talking
with,
about a pretty rare situation.
I don't know.
They've
I think-
gone through this, they've gotten the permit, they've made the plans, they've gotten the architectural work done.
And they paid for materials
And
that
they-
haven't been purchased. They projected materials.
Right.
So
So
they,
if you get to that stage, you're committed to the process.
not necessarily, no, because now you've got a drawing and gone through all this, and then somebody died and they decided I'm not gonna do it.
and I
That
would
can
say
happen. That's a
that
rare thing. I'm just.
as-
Well, if that comes up, we will deal with that when that
And
comes up.
that's how I
I mean,
would
I
not,
think that we would refund the fund. I mean,
You have to
we need that in.
I think it would be, in the past, I did see in one case where Jackie did refund. She brought it to the board approved it. After we had that meeting, I went and looked, I did find in one instance where it was refunded. I don't have any problem refunding
Oh,
people their
I shouldn't,
money.
I'm just making
Um,
sure that it doesn't say, well,
It,
we don't have to do them, you know, if
Right.
you're gone and you got another officer in here or whatever.
yeah, the permits all say non-refundable, but I think in this type of case, it would be an,
We wouldn't be refunding the permit fee. We'd be
Right.
refunding
Keep the
use
fee, the
tax.
fee, that's right, the use tax is
it's-
what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
In fact, it's under 8.3 use
I
tax.
think we're all on the same page there.
and we can add some verbiage in there, but I think it would be a one-off situation. And I could deal with them
That's easy to put a
individually.
sentence in there, should, circumstance, blah, blah, blah.
It should be a one-on-one conversation with the board looking into it, because say I come here and I didn't buy everything through Ace or whatever, I went to Home Depot. You'd never know that I went to Home Depot, and I come here and go, well, I didn't buy anything through Custer County, I want my money back.
But they should have a record of being paid though.
You have record of getting paid, but then they want their money back when they'd already billed.
That's what I'm,
Yeah, you gotta be careful with that, because if I don't buy anything in Custer County, then I pay that 2% fee to bill here, I go to Home Depot or whatever. I can, then with that, if we put a clause in there on that, then people are gonna be coming back in and say, well, I want $1,000 back. It needs to be a case by case basis.
So why don't we get through the, because we're in a public hearing right now, so we need to get through the presentation. And then we can take.
yeah, we can talk
comments from
about
the
comments,
public,
but I'm talking.
and then
about
after that, then we can talk about any changes the board might want to make after the public hearing and when we're in
just bringing
discussion.
it
of
up
the-
so we can.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to, I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
And we shouldn't discuss it. Okay,
On to section 9, page 61, letter D. Unless otherwise, we've added unless otherwise stated in the approved permit, if an SUP ceases operation for 2 years consecutive years, for 2 consecutive years, then the permit becomes null and void. Page 62, the last bullet on 9.3.1 general requirements. The SUP permit shall not be transferred or assigned to another individual entity or address. A new owner may apply for a new SUP permit prior to taking the title of an existing SUP property without ceasing ceasing an interruption of current permit activities. So in other words, if I have an SUP, I'll use for wedding venues and I buy that property, I can continue operating. But I have to start the process to change that SUP over to my name. It's not
And
transferred.
you can do that before you close
Yes,
by this verbiage.
we worked with one individual with that recently. Yep. Page 63, 9.3.2 down at the bottom. It's just changing the cost of the postage for public notice fees. We've added in there and or additional postage. If these costs exceed 7% of the application fee. Instead of 20%. Next page, 64.
you missed an SUP application should not be sent.
That's where she's at.
365, is that the? Oh, it's on.
Page 64.
Got it.
Revocation of an SUP, special use permit. We added in a new SUP application shall not be submitted within 365 days from revocation. So if your permit has been revoked, it's a year later that you're able to reapply. Page 65, 9.7, special use submission requirements and criteria. We've added an SUP is tied to both the landowner and the parcel. So I think in the past, it's been there's been some question about that, so we just clarified that it's tied to both. Next one's on page 66, home occupation. A, A home occupation permit is tied to both the owner and the parcel. We also took out, on C, home occupation permits that are not permitted, that will not be permitted. We removed 10 for nursery or daycare. And that was due to the Kids Council and the change in the state regulations. That came up, I believe we brought it to the board earlier in the year, or last year. Page 71. Number 2. Again, it's just talking about changing the 20% postage fee if the postage cost goes over, it's 7% of the cost instead of 20. And page 72, letter E, regarding HOA and POA restrictions. With respect to an STR, section 8 zoning procedures, we removed all of that section out of there. So you would refer back to section 8 in the zoning procedures. And really, we don't get involved with the HOA and POA regulations. That's part of the questions on an STR and SUP, is to make sure that they're following what's in the HOA and POA regulations. So 73, application for an STR permit. On B, number 2, we just added for the fire evacuation map, we added inside and out. And then we added in fire extinguishers shall be marked on the inside evacuation map. There shall be at least 1 fire extinguisher per floor and no less than 2 per dwelling. And then number 4, we added, if a parcel adjoins private property and is not separated by a fence or road, there shall be property boundaries and boundary indicators to help prevent unintended trespassing. A description of these shall be included in the house rules. So just to kind of stop some of the issues that we've had with trespassing with the STRs, especially on the small lots, we're asking them to define the boundaries a little bit more than what I think we've asked for in the past.
Is there required at least a certain type? What is it gonna be left up to the person to say, I left a golf ball out there?
I think that's something we put in on their restrictions if we feel like there's a need for that. Like some of the bigger lots, I don't know that there's that much of a need. Correct me if I'm wrong, Keith. Some of them we're defining it needs to be so far, and that'll be part of their part of the.
You know, I would want to follow the rules, and so I would ask him, so what can I buy that would be satisfactory to meet that requirement?
And we have it.
Well, and I mean, with each individual case, it might be different. In one place, it might be, T-posts, in another place, it might be boundary flags.
Corner posts would work.
And, someplace where we can see, they can see from one marker to another.
Okay, so Dorothy would explain
And
that
we
to them
usually
when they
make them
ask.
recommendations individually, when they submit their application. That might be one of the restrictions that we put on them, is that they need to do this, but each case is gonna be different.
Sure.
So you're not gonna be able to make a
No.
strict regulation for it.
You could help define what would work.
When we do our conference with them, that's one of the things that we talk to them about.
Okay.
And I think he worded it very well in saying you should be able to see one boundary marker to the next. That's not always possible, but we can definitely try. Number 5, we just took out bunkhouse, and it's just accessory buildings cannot be rented as STRs. Because the bunkhouse will now be part of a guest house, will be defined as a guest house or a dwelling, a second dwelling. So that was removed. Page 74C. We added on number 2, arrange a pre-application process. We just defined the conference. It's a pre-application conference that they would have with the planning and zoning office. And a lot of times the chairman, chairperson, of the planning commission as well. Number 4. We're asking that we've added in there to provide a color photo of the front of the STR main building to the planning and zoning office. And really what that does is help me
Find them.
identify that that is one of our current STRs. Number 7, we've added provide all website addresses for the STR property with any updates within 5 days as needed to the planning and zoning office. Number 8, if there are conditions added to the STR application during the planning commission hearing, they shall be completed in a timely and the time specified at the hearing, or the application shall be considered null and void, and the applicant must reapply. Page 75, where it talks about number F, the Board of County Commissioners shall. On number 2, we just kind of define that a little bit better. If denied, inform the applicant of the appeal process by the BZA, see section 4.3. And that's something that I would probably do in place for the commissioners. And that's something we do, but it just wasn't in there. So 9.10.5, public notice of meeting procedures. Basically just took out the verbiage of at the expense of the applicant. We've never necessarily charged them for that, so there was no need to have that in there. And down in C, again, just changing the public notice fees, that the cost would be 7% of the if it exceeds 7% of the application fee. Page 76, F, is revocation of an STR falls under 9.3.4, revocation of a special use permit. So the STRs fall under the special use permit process in the resolution, and this just defines that the revocation is the same. To revoke an STR is the same process as it would be for an SUP.
Because it is a special use.
It is, yeah. Under 910.7 STR density on the same page, we've added existing STRs if I can speak, which are not renewed or are sold and not continued as an STR may be replaced with a new STR without affecting the annual increase limits. So we allow so many in each zone every year. I'll give you an example. This year we've had 3 drop out. They didn't pay for their permit. We sent them multiple notices. I had to Delana call each individual that we were able to get a hold of, and they, for whatever reason, are no longer using their dwelling as an STR. So it opened up 3 slots in different zones. Page 105, under fees for a PUD application. Just kind of putting some more definition in there. Under B, the developer shall require to pay the public notice fees and or additional postage. These costs, if they exceed, again, the 7% opposed to 20%. The next page is page 108. And in all cases, the changes on here are just taking out calendar days and just having the 30 days in there. That's in two areas.
Okay.
That is it.
I will open it up for questions on this.
Or comments.
Or comments, yes. Gilbert.
James Gilbert, basically 3 areas, they're quick questions. On the signs, illuminated signs, and there's no provision made for, light contaminating the sky. But there is for everything else.
You coming for the meeting? Oh, okay.
So I guess my question would be, is there any intention to add that?
Keith, you got an answer?
The county itself does not have a dark sky ordinance. And it's not included in our master plan,
It's all voluntary.
so voluntarily, yes, and we could suggest it. But I would say it would not be mandatory.
And that's what you've said in the other before.
Then the other question regarding, just to follow up on the bunkhouses, I get it all, and just sort of a related question, I guess, if I put a bedroom above my garage, does that become then a guest house?
The question is, if he puts a bedroom above his garage, does that make that become a guest house?
I think so, yeah.
It's a
It would need to
freestanding
be.
garage.
It would need to be permitted that way, yes.
Okay. And the last thing, on the use tax. The deletion from the definition would imply the reason for the use tax was to assure that sales tax. Not paid to Custer County was sort of recouped from purchases made outside of the county. That was my understanding what the old definition was. And the current use tax, then I assume that it's applied to materials applied projected to be purchased from anywhere,
It is from anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a person paying the sales tax in Custer County is paying an additional tax for use.
No. So basically, if I come in and I got a building permit, zoning permit to build my dwelling,
Mhm.
we ask you what your estimated amount
Right.
of building materials will be.
And you
And
charge
then
them
at the
2%.
end, we charge them 2%. At the end of that, we give them a receipt along with their permit that shows what they paid in building costs, what in use tax. Then they can go anywhere and purchase their building material, show them that receipt, and it will eliminate the cost of use tax in that particular area. So
Don't get
I
a
will-
Pueblo tax, then is that what you're saying?
The only thing that you pay is the state tax. I don't charge any state tax up front. That's all done. at the
No,
time.
I know, I was talking about the sales tax.
I don't do anything
Well,
with
that's
sales
not-
tax. it's
Yeah,
use
that has
tax.
nothing to do with the use tax.
The sales tax is 2.9% in the state of Colorado across the board. We don't have anything to do with that. We do the
No.
use tax in
Yeah, I
our
understand.
county. And
I guess, does the county have a sales tax on that kind of stuff?
It's a
state
sales,
tax.
it's a sales and use taxes, I believe is how it is worded. And yes, and so. But if you went down here to Ace to buy your building materials, you show them that receipt, they will not charge you the county. Sales and use tax on that purchase if you show them that receipt. Just like
Okay.
if you went to Pueblo and did it, so you will not be double billed.
Okay, none of that, from my reading of the use tax information, none of that is in there, so I guess you get it explained when you do it.
We explain it to them thoroughly.
Okay, because it sounded to me like all of a sudden we're paying another tax on top
No.
of, but that's fine.
No,
Okay, so that clarifies all of that. Thank you.
Joy,
Hi, Joy Anderson. I too am kind of confused by the use, calling it a use tax, when use usually refers to what a building is being used for. And it sounds to me more like it's a sales tax because somebody decided to buy something in a different county. And we would prefer them to buy materials here. Is that the idea? We want them to buy stuff here?
I think that's always what we would encourage. But in the real world, a lot of people go to Pueblo, Fremont County, and other counties and purchase their building materials because of the cost.
What's the problem with that?
I don't have a problem with that at all, but I'll give you an example. Pueblo's use tax is higher than our tax, our use tax. So when if you went down to Lowe's and you bought, $100,000 in building material, they're gonna charge you, I think, and don't quote me on this, I think there's a 3.9% use tax. Ours is 2%. If I charge you that 2%, when you buy your building, your permit, then that eliminates you from paying that 3.9% use tax. You've already paid it up here, it keeps that money in our county instead of it going down the mountain. And you actually save a little bit of money.
So let me see if I get this right. I buy materials here that equal $100,000 because the use tax here is 2%.
You're paying it at the time that you come in and get your permit. So you're telling me, and I take your word for it, my estimated amount of building materials would cost $100,000. I'm just using that as an example. I charge you the 2% use tax that we would charge if you bought it in Custer County anywhere. It's according to the revenue service, that is the point of sale. So we should be charging that at the time that we sell them that zoning permit. So you're only gonna pay 2%. No matter where you go buy your material, you already paid that. You don't have to pay it again.
So I go to Pueblo and they charge me, you're saying they would charge 3.9%?
All they're gonna charge you is the 2.9% state tax. That eliminates their use tax or city tax or any other tax that they may have.
Okay. So instead of them collecting the use tax, you collect the use tax, they still get the
Custer
sales
County
tax.
gets it.
They still get the sales tax.
And you don't get dinged twice.
And you don't get dinged twice.
Yep.
And you want that all up front when somebody applies for the permit.
Yes,
So
And
it
that's already
seems,
in there.
it seems like accounting can be a tricky thing and keeping track of stuff. And so, and I know what it's like to, as an architect, used to be an architect, I know what it's like to try to estimate the cost of a building beforehand and deal with the fluctuations as you go through construction. And so you're telling me I'm gonna be collected from at the front, but on the back, I also have the responsibility to keep my receipts and prove that that's really how it came out, because you might come out and ask me to justify the materials that I've spent on site. It seems to me like there's gotta be another way to make that simpler. Because you just created a bookkeeping nightmare, not just for me, but for you.
but
That's gonna involve your effort as well, and it seems like we're short on that.
the way that we used to do that, and the way that was written in there,
Yeah.
was after the bill, I would then come out and you would have to show me every single receipt that you had.
That's not bad.
Why don't you just wait till the end and do that?
That's what she said.
Because if they go down to Pueblo and they buy all their building materials in Custer, they paid more.
Mhm.
I, as a consumer, paid more going down there. Plus that money went to the county of Pueblo instead of the county of Custer County.
Okay.
Very nice.
The second thing I had a question
Enjoy.
on. Yeah.
You would wanna have it because you may find it cheaper and you'd wanna be reimbursed.
Yeah.
What you
I think
didn't
I'm
use.
getting, I think I'm getting,
Okay.
thank you.
It's hard to. It's a process.
Yeah.
That's pretty standard.
But your time.
Yes. The other thing that I was wondering about, I just want to tell you, I'll tell two more points if you can have a little patience. One is, I see a lot of language in here that references other things, and so I was trying to find, okay, well, what's the definition of that? And it's not provided in here, or it says it's in a certain section, and then I go in here and the section isn't complete. And so I just wanted to say, I mean, if this is something that we're voting on today, you're hoping is gonna get voted on today. And I don't know what the process has been so far, you can tell me that afterwards. But I would hope that we'd had a chance to see the full thing before.
And you do, it's on the, planning and zoning website, it's been posted there since we put out the, notice of the meeting. This is a condensed version, I gave everybody,
Abbreviated.
so that it just has the changes. And I can tell you when it references it, if you pull up the full document, it is there. And if it's not, let me know. But I'm 99.9% sure that Mary has that all in there, very detailed.
Okay, last, I just want to end with a little story and ask a question about this, what it would mean here in Custer County. When my husband and I were first married, we were dirt poor, couldn't afford anything, looked for a vacation option. We lived in Texas at the time. And we found some creative, call it VRBOs. One of them was a room that had been converted from a chicken coop. You could get out of the bed, but you were, it was small, it was tight, but it's one of my favorite memories in terms of the early parts in our marriage, that we could actually go and visit this farm, this homestead that had chickens and cows and everything else, and we got to stay in a chicken coop that had been renovated. And in the second one, what was the second one? I can't remember the second one. I had it when we were talking, and then I read this and it's like accessory structures cannot be registered as STRs. So according to Custer County, we have a lot of rich and unique opportunities here, like the chicken coop. And this is saying that we can't do that. We can't capitalize on what would actually attract people to our area, the unique structures and stuff that we have on site. That seems like a shame, and it seems like a really big miss on tourism. Honestly, I'm not sure why Deb Adams isn't here protesting that.
Well, honestly, an accessory building, even in the state of Colorado, cannot be slept in. It has to be connected to a septic. It has to be put together like a, so in other words, they probably changed that from an accessory building to some type of dwelling structure.
You could still modify a chicken coop and move
You
into it
could.
and get a permit to do it.
Is the thing the cooktop or not? Is a cooktop still the issue for what defines something as a dwelling unit? Because again, definitions aren't in here. I don't know.
It is, I believe, still in there, but that's mainly in regards to a bunkhouse. And the bunkhouses, we moved over to be a guest house or a second dwelling, and that kind of eliminates that misunderstanding or gray area. That is very,
What makes it gray? Cooktops are clear.
then you can use whatever you want in your dwelling.
So what she's saying is go to the guest section and read that, and it'll spec out what you can have.
And I didn't bring my full copy.
Are you planning on voting on this and accepting this today?
That's the next thing on the agenda. Yes, ma'am.
Did we postpone it a week?
It is on the
Everybody
agenda
is
for
there,
today.
right?
We had workshops on it, and then this has been posted for 2 weeks.
It does feel like, as I look through these changes, it does feel like a grab on this part of trying to control what people can do on their properties, and that just does not. Why are we doing that?
The last thing you brought up is actually something that has already existed in the zoning document.
But not the way these changes have been made, and some of these changes actually make it harder for the people that own their property to do things they want to do. Why?
I've not lived here more than 8 years, but it seems like from talking to those who started the whole process, talking to the planning commission and Keith, tell me if I'm wrong, or Jimmy or anybody else that's lived here longer than I have. But the intent was not to set up businesses on every piece of property. The intent was either it's a residence or it's a farm or a ranch. And if you, and so that's what my understanding is of the zoning regulations and how they got started. And they've tried to stay to that intent with everything they've tried to do. And anybody else can correct me if I'm wrong on that, sir.
Let me help out on that too, because well, it's here longer as well. And I think Kevin was here when we first went through the zoning and we updated it when you first came in. Remember sitting in Lang Hall? We had everybody there in the workshop and we went through these kinds of things, had that discussion. They went back and reworked the regulation to include that. And that's when the top was in there and all that other stuff. So that existed. They did the same thing in this case. What you see here are the changes. We had a workshop. I don't think you were there. And so other people in here were there. And we went through exactly the same kind of discussion. And then they went back and said, based on the discussion, said, well, all right, we'll go incorporate what we've heard. Some of it they modified and the zoning commission voted on it internally. So that's what they're presenting today. I'm comfortable personally as a commissioner. Because we've been through that process and understand that everything they point to does exist. And what they cleaned up, they've made sure that it is clear. I believe.
Yeah, because basically, we went through a year's worth of workshops.
Yeah.
Just using this.
Right.
Custer County is a land use county. We're one of
3 or 4.
3 or 4
Do now.
And because of that, the only things that are allowed by right in Custer County is a resident or a farm, an agricultural type business. That's the only things that are allowed by right. Everything else requires a special use permit.
Okay. Is, you took out the language that the local HOAs and communities, you don't even acknowledge those, the county's just gonna have their standard, that way you don't have this kind of fighting between the two kind of thing.
It's not,
I get that, I
not the
get that,
county's job to
however,
enforce this.
That's right.
why not leave it with the HOAs to decide? I mean, because usually that's the thing that decides whether somebody's gonna pay a lot of money for their home or a little bit of money for their home is the flexibility of use. And so neighborhoods have the ability to set their standard and people have the ability to choose whether they're gonna go to one neighborhood that allows it or one neighborhood that doesn't.
But that's what they did, Joy, because if they want to have an STR, their bylaws can say that's the county isn't going to care whether it goes into an HOA.
But as a county, we also want to have that restriction because of the fact that we are a land use county and we don't
They'd have to
want
abide by it.
a lot of other businesses. The county was set up that way to where you can have agriculture or you can have a residence.
See, an HOA
If you
can't
want a
decide to have
business
a
of some
business.
sort, it requires you to come and get a permit for that and go through that process.
Even if you're in an HOA.
So
Yeah.
that is why we have that in there.
I can kind of see that going forward too, because now you've established these laws and so somebody would have to do that. What? And I lost it. That's all right. But. Just give me 10 seconds. 'Cause I know you only give me one chance to say something.
If you think of it, I'll let you speak again.
Yeah, because it's really just not a clarifying question, but.
Okay, if you think of it, I'll let you speak again. This is a public hearing. I'm not gonna
I know what it
restrict.
is.
Okay, go ahead.
Special use permits, what's the thinking behind the cancellation of them and the non-transferability of them?
If, I'll give you an example that I know of that where there's one still on the books that probably needs purge. As you come into Wetmore on the left-hand side of the road there, right by the dairy. There was a gentleman that had that was Derek Brixey, had the taxidermy. Well, he's sold out and he has left 5 years ago or so. So he had, was that a home that would have been a home occupation, a special use permit for a home occupation. Now he's been gone for 5 years. That needs purged from the books because now that is null and void. The person that bought that, if they had wanted to continue that taxidermy business, they would have needed to come in and apply for that same permit And with the verbiage that's in here now, before you couldn't do it before you had title. Now that we're allowing for the process to take place before you actually close on a place,
That's good.
so that you can continue a business uninterrupted.
And you can know whether that would be a problem prior to closing, and if it is a problem, you can choose not to close.
Yeah, if you're buying it as a business and you can't get the permit, then you're not gonna buy it.
I know things in Westbrook move at a little bit different pace than other places in this country. I'm used to businesses and stuff that may take long to get established or to get sold or to change hands and things like that. Is there provision for extensions to that 2 years? Like if somebody's trying to actively market a convenience store or something and try to get somebody else to come in there and use it, or some kind of special use, can they apply for an extension? And could there be provisions of, yes, but I want you to keep it this way?
Yeah, it's not in writing, but even for somebody's dwelling permit, if they need an extension of 6 months, they can then sit down, talk to me. I have no problem putting on that permit that we're extending it for them. We're more than willing to work with any individual if they want to come in and do something like that.
Are y'all also open to that idea?
Yeah, I mean, our plan is to work with the people as much as possible and state to the intent and not just follow just necessarily every I is dotted, but
Yeah.
if people, somebody got sick and they were just finishing up their home and they haven't moved their appliances in and all that, and they went for family emergency down to Texas, wherever. And then they came back I think any of us would be reasonable people to go, yeah.
And that's happened a lot in the
Let's help
past.
out.
We've had septic systems not get completed and extended, and they come into the board.
I'm glad you thought of it. Mr. Gilbert, did you have your hand up again?
I did, and it was a very simple clarification. If I put a bed in my chicken coop and a waste, all I have to do is put a toilet in there. I don't have to put a cooktop to make it a guest house, right?
No,
Okay, so.
you gotta have a septic system to your chicken.
Exactly. So, if my septic could,
Or-
or the chicken coop, maybe that's what I had to do with my chicken.
If you,
Get rid of the chicken.
you can leave the roost in and you don't have to move the bed.
A front yard head bed's in there for your hens.
No, that's my, dog house.
Oh, okay.
I need to look online. I haven't looked to see if we had any hands up here. We do not. Anybody else here in the room? Yes, sir.
Jim McMahon, I would like to comment, but one of the reasons I moved here to Custer County is because of the little slice of Americana that's left. And I like it the way it is. And what's happened here, I think, is a good thing. You've been able to increase that department, the income of that quite a bit, right? From like what to what?
Not to say it, I don't know that I can quote it off the top of my head. It was over 200,000, 230 some thousand.
From what, though? It was
That was the increase.
less than 50. I remember you giving the report.
$68. Yeah, but actually it was 60.
5,800 was the whole.
Yeah.
$68. The year before you were here.
There was $68 for
Yeah.
collected,
Year.
and
So,
I believe we collected 238,000, somewhere around.
Right.
That may be completely
so
off.
it's kind of a significant thing. I know some of us are going, what the heck is going on here? I don't know. But I think you're doing a really good job. And one of the other things that I want to say is we don't have a full UBC or IBC code enforcement up here, which is why I moved here, because I had enough. I had enough of enough of enough. So thank you. And let's, hopefully we could maintain this. That's what I'm hoping.
Go through it again.
We've been through that
5 times.
or twice or
I
5 times.
appreciate you.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what we did on part of P and Z is we clarified everything. Is what we did. That's what most of this is. The changes were already there. We just clarified and took some convoluted things that didn't need to be there.
Okay.
Also was gonna say, I agree about building codes, but I'm watching some buildings going up. They're using ICF now, which is your foundation basement. And they're not venting it. What you get there within 6 months is mold. And so people are gonna start having mold in these ICF type of, basements, not basements, but crawl spaces. Because they're not venting them. And that's not a good thing, because plumbers won't go down there. You're gonna have sickness happening. Something needs to be looked at in regard to that. Because you've got people coming here building because they don't want to follow codes. But in that specific case, they need to follow codes with crawl spaces. Because they don't know what they're doing. And there's a house going out on 310 right now. They never vented the 3-foot crawl space they have. And in 6 months, it'll be mold. Very scary.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's a really good point.
Just don't bring the code here. You need to code, move someplace that accommodates you. That's all I'll say.
So we can-
All right, anything else here on our hearing? That being the case, I will adjourn our public hearing at 10:36 a.m. and we will go back into, we will take a short break. And then we'll reconvene our BOCC meeting.
Good job.
All right, if you guys want to take your seats, we'll get started again. Okay, the time is now 10:43 a.m. and I will reconvene our BOCC meeting. The next item on our agenda would be the consideration of approving the changes to the zoning resolution. And being we just went through that meeting, I would entertain a motion.
I move we approve the zoning regulations, what would we call it?
The amendments to the zoning.
Amendments, yeah, it's the amendments to the zoning regulations as presented.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
So I have a motion on the floor to approve the amendments to the zoning resolution as presented here today. Discussion here at the table.
I think it's a good job summarizing and streamlining, as they pointed out. So, appreciate the hard work.
Very good clarifications, so.
Thank you.
And it's a living document. I mean, you're always finding things that you need to tweak and change. I mean, next week we'll find something that, hey, we should have addressed this or something, so. But thank you guys all. Appreciate your year's worth of work on it. Any other comments at the table? Discussion? Any public comment on that?
I will make one comment.
Yes.
And that's the fact that I really don't plan on doing this every year if we don't have to. I'd like to find a simpler way to do it than redo the whole document. So, but there are so many references that if we make a simple change, it can change something throughout that whole document.
Yeah.
So I don't like to do it very often.
We will try to keep that at a minimum, sir. Any other public comment? Seeing none. Those in favor of approving the changes to the zoning resolution as presented here today, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. That motion carries. And probably when that gets retyped, make sure that we have the new date on there.
Yep.
Okay.
Will you give me a copy, Dave, please?
The next item we have on our agenda would be the consideration of Ned Urbistondo STR application.
I'm presenting today the planning commission's recommendation not to approve the Urbistondo STR application. The following, we had 6 votes from the planning commission. That should say all nay. Sorry, I have a typo on my document to you. They were 6 votes to not recommend approval to you, to the Board of County Commissioners. Mike Shields was present. He voted not to recommend approval. Reason for that was a dead end road, hard to get out of if there's a fire. The road is narrow and shared by many neighbors. Justin Giroux, vote not to recommend approval. His reasoning was, neighbors don't want it. Does not have Mr. Urbano does not have a relationship with the other neighbors. Bill Donnelly was present. He voted not to recommend. He agrees with what everyone else said, and the fact that it's a shared road. Daryl Winland was not present. Mary Mowry voted not to recommend approval. The reason was the same reason as everyone else, and the neighbors don't want it. Skip Northcross voted not to recommend. His reason was access is too hard and discrepancy in the stories presented in the hearing. Keith Hood was present and voted not to recommend. Reason being that there was no changes in the conditions since the last application.
Is there anyone here representing Mr. Urban Stomach?
Yes, I am.
If you would like to address us, by all means, sir.
Yes, Paul Young, I'm the agent for Dr. Ned Eversondo. I'd like to address each of those, their reasons for disallowing the permit. Number one, that road is in better shape than a good third of the county roads here that are maintained by the county. In fact, it's on a dead end road. I've got another property that I manage. It's on a dead end private road that was approved. None of the neighbors are for it is actually false. Next door neighbor, Mr. Anderson, has no problem with it whatsoever. None of the reasons specified, I have been able to find in your words. There's nothing in there that specifies any of those reasons are reasons to disallow. We've been 100% compliant with it. We're operating long-term right now, the same as we would with short-term under the conditions of this ordinance. So we're asking to overturn their recommendation, improve our short-term rental permit, and then give us a year. If we have been bad neighbors, pull it. If we've been good neighbors, we haven't had any problems, then let's go on like everybody else. And far as I know, there's only been one other SDR denied for any reasons other than, well, just the other day, there was one that was approved, still had 4 things that had to be done. They were non-compliant. And they were approved as long as they can comply. We're in compliance, so there's no reason why we shouldn't. One other thing. But if I think of it later, I'll let you know. But that's all I've got right now. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. I would ask probably because they are at the present time operating a long-term rental. Has your office received any complaints in regards to that?
No, not in regards to their long-term rental.
Okay. Gentlemen,
It is a county road, correct?
No. It's a private road.
It's a private road.
Mhm.
So from where here, is this all private here?
Yes. I was sure the greatest property at the county road is right. Like the county roads are-
so the county road it meets is north of where we can see
County Road 150, Muddy Road.
Muddy. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And that's a private road shared by all of the adjoining landowners.
Yes, but I'm Roger Gregg. I'm one of the neighbors. And the road actually is on, well, most of it's on our property, but it's all on different properties getting up to Dr. Urbanizato's property.
So a shared designated access road. Right, correct. Okay. Thank you for that.
From looking at a picture of the house, seems like it's got fire mitigation done around it. I mean, it sits up there and there's not a lot of trees around the house.
I believe so. I was not able to get up there due to access, with the recent snow when we did our tour. But I think Paul would answer that question.
There has been extensive mitigation around the house.
Okay.
In fact, even the firewood is probably 100 feet away from the house.
Okay, and that's what it looked like from the picture, so.
And we don't allow any outdoor burning other than a pre-plumbed gas grill. So
Paul, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
It's a long-term lease. What does that mean? Is it a year or are you guys doing it like,
31 days.
that's what I was gonna get in there. If it's 31 days and another 31 days, you could have 12 people coming. Well, almost 12, well, probably 12 in a year.
The
there been-
last 2 years, we've had, on average, they've been 45 to 50 days. Many of those folks were, they just travel all over the US working remotely. We
There have been,
we had one that was there for 3.5 months. I've got one shaking in next week that will be here for 56 days. Since we haven't been able to get approved yet, so we're still operating long-term.
but there have been no issues with turnover on those.
No, sir.
No
I've had
complaints.
2 people had to leave. One was due to health issues. Well, in fact, the last one, they left. She became pregnant. And 8,700 feet elevation was not doing well for her. So they left in December.
I guess I'm gonna ask Roger, any issues that you've seen with the rentals like they are now?
Well, a little bit. Well, for one thing, the renters that he was talking about that were there in the fall, they, one of the things they brought a semi truck up there and parked it on the road, which, well, Paul said that he gave him permission, but I don't think he really has the authority to give him permission to park on that road.
He was supposed to park up top. I didn't realize he was on the road, but no,
Well, they were on the road, you know, right above their driveway is where it was. Which,
yeah, there was a trailer there for a long time.
you know, we didn't think it was worth raising a ruckus about it, and I think it was only there a week or something like that, but anyway, they had that. There's also, I know that, the neighbors to the south had some trespassing issues, which have been documented, that they reported it with the sheriff.
And that was prior to me becoming agent. That's been over 2.5 years.
No,
No, I
No.
don't think so.
Let's not get into back and forth.
Yeah, you got,
Right.
everybody needs to address the board. So,
So there were some trespassing issues that have been reported. Also, another thing is the permit got denied in 2 years ago in 2022. And we've got the reasons for that.
there's 3 letters here. Yeah. And nothing's changed.
Things haven't changed, so here's.
Did, just another quick question, Roger.
sure.
Has Paul been readily accessible to you when you call him? Does he respond?
Oh, yeah, no problem.
And he
We
fixes,
have a fairly good relationship. I text him. Oh, occasionally we have a UPS box that, when the road's too bad, a lot of times the UPS guys will put the old FedEx or whatever, put packages in there. And if I see one in there for the renters, I'll text Paul and let him know about that.
so,
Also, we're sharing our dumpster with them, and that's been working out fairly well.
so he's been responsive to everything. Do you see a problem like the truck thing? You've been able to enforce things and comply with what?
Yes, sir. And that was, they were asked if they could leave it there for just a couple of days. He had to move some cattle. And he was storing the tractor there and then it was gone.
So, okay, so
And I
I'm,
told him if it was, you know, if you run for extended periods of time and bother everybody, you're going to put it somewhere else. But
so
I never heard him.
let me ask Roger this in regards to that. So, given he's a great manager and he's doing the right thing, so that's what's been the turnover, maybe four people a year, 3, 5, what is it?
5 to 6.
About 6. So are you worried that if it's increased to potentially 12, like 6 more, that he can't handle that either, or would it be different? I mean, what would be the impact?
We see a big difference between short-term, you know, but if it was 12, yeah, one a month, which is kind of what the long-term rental would be if they filled it up.
That's not a problem.
Well, it's less of a problem than than having somebody come for a weekend or say for 3 days.
Is that the intent on the short term then, Paul? You
Judge,
went by the
I think
week
the
or by the
market's
day?
going right now. If we were to get, if we're approved, if we were to get 2 or 3 rentals a month, I would be surprised right now. I have got, I'm running 6 properties right now. I got 1 occupant this week, next week. It's very, very slow, even with, spring break. I don't anticipate more than 2 or 3 guests a month, which would be figure 9 days out of 30. So you got a good 2.5, 3 weeks of nothing.
Okay, thank you. I'll make another comment later.
Well, one of the big difference, it's a really big difference between long-term rental and short-term rentals. Because they illegally did, we all know, certainly you, that they did an illegal short-term rental. And I mean, the traffic up there was just horrendous, just back and forth, back and forth. We had to put cameras up to try to get those under control. So switching from the short term to the long term made it easier for us. There's less traffic and it's reasonable. Now, we prefer no rentals up there, but the long-term rentals, and they're mostly, like you said, they have jobs and they're working from home and they're living up there. Short-term rentals aren't, they just go back and forth and back and forth. Paul made the comment that this road is better than many of the county roads. Well, this year, this road is as worse as it has been because Roger maintains the road. It's our road, it's our land, it's part of the 35 acres. We have to, under the law of the state, give permission to people to get to their homes. That's it. That's it. It's our road. And we were trying to be good neighbors when the truck and it wasn't just a truck, it was a motor home and all that. I wanted to go and report it. Roger and Ann Roby said, no, let's just let it stay there for a few days. But the thing that really upset me in the last meeting with planning and zoning, he says he gave them permission to park on the road. He doesn't have permission to give them to park on the road. And so he's overstepping his boundaries as what are you, general manager, whatever he was, property manager. So it really is a big difference. And if they're doing long-term rentals, they're making money, then there's no reason to let him go to short-term rentals. And in the meeting last week at the planning and zoning, that Paul quoted that he wants a short-term rental up there because it makes more money for him. Well, that was a quote, if anybody listened to the meeting. And he also made another quote, because again, Roger does the road maintenance. We've had to hire, because of his back, he had back surgery, we've had to hire people to do the road because we make sure it's open for Ann Roby, who is up at the end of the road across the street from Ned's. So we've had to actually hire people, since it's our road, most of it's our road, to go up there and do it. And Paul said in the last meeting, basically he said, well, we'll kick in more money for the HOA dues. Again, he doesn't understand the situation up there. We don't have an HOA. We have covenants, which you guys don't recognize. We understand that. We have covenants, but we don't have an HOA. He's never paid it, so how can he pay more? We don't ask him. It's our road. We maintain it and we do the best we can. And then the other thing that he said that in the last meeting with the planning and zoning, he says that the grades don't count because we live a half a mile away. Our land we're together, our land, we do
It's adjacent.
adjacent. So we do count, Paul, because
Well, you're addressing the
I
board.
know,
Thank you.
we do count. I just want to make sure we do count because we do, it's our property, we own the road and we do all the maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. So we're not against the long-term rental if that's what Dr. Ned wants to do. But don't put it back to a short-term rental. And we just have to, again, face what we did a couple years ago. It was about a year ago. And the board, the planning and zoning basically said, with the little stuff that Dorothy said, but they said there's been no change and there hasn't been any change. And so it needs to be denied again. Because it's not a good station. Our road is dangerous. And we just don't need people up there. And when it was going full strong, I mean, the records that we had to keep for the cars and the number of trips. And I remember Dr. Ned saying, well, we won't you're allowed 6 people there with a safety. And he said, we'll only allow 1 person per car. And it's like, well, there can be 6 cars up there. And at one time there was 4 cars and they went to town 3 times a day. So Paul, he is managing. I think he oversteps sometimes when he gives people permission. We also, he talked about Brad Anderson. He's not for short-term rentals. He's against short-term rentals. He's against long-term rentals. But all the rest of us are against it.
Thank you. Any other adjoining landowners or anyone to speak?
How did the road that even goes on Roby property, how is that Greg Road?
Ann owns some of that. And there's 3 people that own the road. Ours is the majority from the middle,
Okay.
and then Ann takes over to the end.
So, yeah,
It's part of her property. She
So-
owns 2.
Greg, Roby, and then the little piece there, just
Right.
straight from Muddy Road to your
Yeah.
piece.
Earl English is part of it.
Yeah,
So there's 3 people that own the road.
Yes.
The whole road.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Well, hold on a second.
yeah,
I wanna-
no, go ahead.
I'm gonna make it clear what he just said. Cause you got Greg and Anderson, the right of way goes through Greg and on Anderson's place both.
well, it's not a right of way. It's our property and we just have to.
Well, that's by law, it's a right of way, it is a right of accident,
Designated access.
that's right.
Yeah,
And so, and then the next up is Roby and Urbizando share the road.
But if you look at the map, the
I am.
property line is really on the west side of the road. It's not down the middle of the road.
Doesn't matter, they have to have access,
Yes.
equal access. So, and then it goes above that, it's DeVay and Roby that share the road after it passes Urbizando.
Right.
So, do you all allow? So you're saying that everybody's agreed they'll never park a car in front of their own property, if it was their own car parking property?
It's never come up.
it's never come up.
Okay.
And they can ask. And all the.
Who do they ask? They'd be-
Yeah. They ask the people that own the road.
Oh, but that, in front of the Urbizando, you don't own that road.
It's-
Roby's the.
Yeah,
That one's Roby.
that would be Roby.
Yeah.
Roby and Urbizando.
But we own the-
Center line of that road is, doesn't
not
matter, it's a
center
right of way that it's get granted. So however. It's stated, that's on the deed, you guys have deeds, I'm familiar with that, and right of way through the deed on the
Doesn't
plan.
say anything.
It should.
I don't think it says.
I don't think it says on our deed.
So you don't have
It wouldn't say on your deed, but there would be an easement agreement
There's gotta
separate from
be an
your
easy
deed.
agreement.
The
Otherwise, there wouldn't have been a building permit issued for that house in the first place.
Okay.
Okay,
Oh,
I'm just trying to clarify.
So I would say, I'll get to public comment when we have a motion on the
I
floor.
thought you had already asked. for
No, we don't
neighbors.
have one yet.
For neighbors?
For neighbor,
Joining- I am for that neighbor.
okay,
Anderson.
go ahead then.
I'm a different Anderson, please.
Okay, then where are you?
Yeah.
Are you an adjoining landowner?
Technically, I am a part of that neighborhood. My driveway comes off of 150, not off of this road that they're talking about.
Where is your property located?
It is
They're lot one.
350 County Road one.
Or lot one on this subdivision.
3500 County Road.
On the map.
So you're not an adjoining landowner. You're a member of the neighborhood, but not an adjoining landowner.
Correct.
Subdivision.
I'll get to you during public
Okay.
comment if we have a motion then.
Okay.
Thank you. Marcy, I would address one thing that you said regardless of how this goes today, because you guys, I'm understanding, are maintaining the whole road. Talk to all the neighbors and see if you can come up with an agreement to where everybody's pitching in on that. You know, if not actually helping with the work, helping with the cost.
Yeah, we did quite a bit of maintenance on it several years ago and everybody pitched in.
Okay. That was just a suggestion on my part, so, but, so any other
You
neighbors?
want these back, Marcy?
No, they're for you, and,
They
that
all
was just
think-
what, this thing happened the same way last
You
year.
see it?
Where the vote, and then they had to let the commissioners know why they voted against it. It was kind of the same way they went through the same process. And, so, and also, we had to hire a lawyer because Roger was having back surgery the day of the planning. And we had to hire a lawyer last year, to, go into planning and zoning and explain what is going on there with the short term now.
Thank you. Anything from you, sir? Just sit and watch it.
Let me make one other comment.
Go ahead.
So if, you know, one way we could do this, you know, somebody brought it up, provisional, um, agreement to let them do it for 6 months, see what happens. Something like that is something that we could compare. See, what's hard to compare right now, Marcy, is the fact that we're supposing it's going to be worse and we don't know it for sure. And that's hard to deny. Just put yourself in my boots for a minute. It's hard for us to deny a person the right to use their own land. And so to try to make it as open as we can, make sure people can establish a business or to do what they can with their own ground. So it's easy to turn and change things if it becomes a nuisance or a problem and fix it that, you know, and this we can do simply in a short-term thing. And that's one way we could come to a compromise perhaps on this. Otherwise, you know, it's awful hard to make that decision.
Aren't you, don't you take the recommendations from the planning?
Yes, and that's what we're doing now. We're understanding what they did, but all they said was, I don't have it pulled up in front of me. There's some blanket statements that, well, the other neighbors don't want it. Well, that doesn't help consider
why we
why.
passed out that letter,
Yeah.
because every one of them said it's because there's been no change, and from that letter, the situation hasn't been changed.
All I had was all I see. And I'm glad you sent the letter out. But even that.
I've got another comment or two.
I've got, yeah.
Because when Dr. Urbanzato first bought the property, he started renting it out as an STR without ever knowing that.
Yeah, no, I remember
it was
that.
Supposed to be.
I remember that really well.
Yeah, so he was kind of in violation, well, definitely in
And
violation.
he was in violation. That's why
And it kind of
important thing to do it right.
He got turned down because of that, and then he reapplied. And then it got turned down because realistically, this is just not an appropriate place for a short-term rental.
But you see, I agree. I hear you. I hear what you're saying. Even on your letter here, it says, you know, the road's gonna get used a lot more. Well, you don't know that. You really don't, because it's not a short-term rental.
But it was.
You don't know how much it,
Short-term rental for a
I
while.
don't know how, I'm just saying, but see, this is a statement that we have to take and decide now. We're gonna,
We have proof of what happens when it's a short-term rental.
well,
Commissioner Gander, we have proof. We have records of the number
Okay.
of cars that went up
Okay.
and down.
So the time
Short
before, when Ned was,
Yeah.
was operating it, unpermitted,
Paul wasn't, who was his property
He wasn't.
manager?
Didn't have one.
Yeah, that's the point.
I was employed after that happened.
Yeah, that was before Paul, yes.
And Urbizando didn't even bother to ask the zoning officer if there's anything, what are the restrictions, blah, 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 so they could control it.
Yes.
But see, the difference is you do have a traffic cop now, or a person that understands, the proper use of it. And that's why I was suggesting there's a possibly a way to make sure, you know, if it does, we can ban it forever.
I do have one more question.
Okay.
And I guess it's directed because, Brad Anderson reported to us that there was a short-term rental there after the, Colton Johnson.
It was in December.
It was in December. They had the days because he knows it was a short-term rental. Because the car was up there, went to Brad's house looking for Paul. And Brad asked him what for, and he said, well, we have a short-term rental. And so Brad directed him to Paul. So right there, I know what's going on. They did a short-term rental
In December.
in December.
Paul,
If I could address that, those were actually some friends of mine that were looking for me. They were looking to rent it in a year for a month to 6 weeks for a wedding venue. The lady that is, it was a black Hummer. Because they were looking at deer or something and they were following me up there and they got lost. So they never rented it. They were there for about an hour and then they left and not been back since. And there was no money exchanged. And I told them, I said, hopefully we get an STR permit, and if so, it's, I mean, you can still rent it for a wedding venue for, you know, a day and do your honeymoon there. But, no, they were never there for more than just an hour.
okay.
Where are they gonna park on their? Okay.
Marcy, please, thank you.
But anyway, that's what that was. It was a misunderstanding. So there was no rental done. There's been nobody in the house since December 16th, other than me.
Thank you, sir. Anything else, gentlemen?
Well, I guess, you know, I'd like to search a little bit more with you guys about coming to a compromise. Because what I don't have from planning and zoning is, here's our rules. Do they check all the boxes? If they check all the boxes, it should never come here. So if it's come here, now it's arbitration basically, and we're mediating between the two parties to come up with an agreement.
Their application, if I could speak,
Sure.
would be complete and accurate. Everything would be checked out and validated and correct before we would send it to the planning commission. So their application is 100% like anybody else's. Everything is met what we would require from them in their application.
So that's all that before. we plan.
Yes. We don't pass it on and schedule a hearing with the planning commission unless they meet all those requirements.
But they're the final approval.
You guys are.
I mean,
BZA would be.
They make a recommendation to us either for approval or not approval.
We have Skip here from the planning and zoning. Can you say anything, Skip?
Put him on the spot.
We, actually, for the same reason, but two years ago, that we rejected it. And the reason it hasn't changed too much.
Thank you.
I guess I'm confused. Did it not meet the check boxes 2 years ago? And now it does?
I think people are confused by your use of the term checkboxes.
Well, I guess, have we met the requirements of the PNC?
2 years ago, it wasn't a
It'd meet the
rental at all.
permit
It wasn't a
process.
rental or an STR, it wasn't anything. It was just, him illegally using it as an STR.
But then he made an application.
Then he made an application, and then that evolved into a long-term rental because the issue was he already proved that he broke the law. And so let's give him a shot at, go a long-term rental, see how it works out as a neighbor. That was my recollection. And so that's why. So now what Paul just presented to us is they checked every box on being perfect STR required. It meets all the requirements, why it should be approved, except for the issue of public comments, I guess, public input on nobody wants them up there. That's sort of a short summary.
Well, and it's really not, just.
For good for a reason.
Logistics and the location, it doesn't,
Right.
it's not a good place for a short-term rental.
Public comment is taken into account, sir. Or comments from the adjoining neighbors.
All right, well, I'm a
During
little
that
new to
meeting.
this process.
As well as other issues as far as where they have to meet the requirements that are all in the zoning regulations as far as their evacuation maps and things of that nature. When there's already an existing STR or something, if there are complaints and issues, if the sheriff's being called out, those are all reasons to look at either a revocation or non-renewal come January. Because these do now, we all renew in January, so if this does go through today, it would already be a shortened SPR, I guess you'd say that it would be, what, 9 months? Okay. Is what it would be approved for, not an actual year from today.
Yeah,
So,
can you table it? And then we can go to our lawyer again and make sure everything is in order. Cause I'm getting the impression that you guys are gonna go ahead and pass this. And I really think there's more to the story. And I think it should be tabled till we get this straightened out.
I don't have a problem doing that necessarily, Marcy, but you're right. Because on the black and white of it, you know, there are people in a dead end road that have STRs. You know, you keep saying it's not the right place for it. It's not the right place, and we care about what the neighbors say, and that matters. That's why we have this process and reasons for it. So, but what's on record is just they responded and they've been towing the line on what's there now. So maybe that's what I'm looking for is the compromise. If it can be used for something else, we have to be careful when we deny people the right to use their own.
Well, that's why,
And, yeah, it would be
that's
respected.
why they went to a long-term, you guys that had nothing to do with them going to a long.
No, but that's the law in the state. I
That's
mean,
the law in
anything
the
over, that's right.
Mhm.
And that's what we said that would happen, and that's what they did, and that's good.
And then there's a question of forming a business that we need to check out. There's a new business that Paul joined. And it's part of the,
It's using Dr. Brazano's address.
it's using. Yeah, the address of the, and so we need to investigate that further if that's going to be.
that's a
the case.
different issue though.
Well,
That has nothing to do with it being an STR, correct?
I would have to ask Paul.
So,
But I'm going back to their covenants, because then the only thing, the alternative that we would have is we'd have to go back to the covenants and take it to court. That would.
If
be
there's a business going on, that's
a
correct.
business and, the covenant says there's no STRs, no business, but you guys.
Well, I think we already
that
have a
doesn't, but that
non-business.
doesn't affect us here.
It doesn't affect you, that's right, so then the only way we can do that is to go to court.
Well, it affects us in one way in that we don't allow residents to be businesses except by this permit.
Yeah,
So that's,
correct.
but if he's not doing a business, that's,
Well, I'm assuming he's doing a business.
They have an address there.
He's registered with the state of Colorado.
could be his address. But you're right, we need to find that out.
Almost can I say something?
Hmm.
Almost every STR, once they're approved or during the approval process, changes the name over to an LLC. And my assumption is that that's
Usually,
for
could be private too.
legal purposes, you know, they want to protect themselves as an individual.
It's liability.
That's,
Okay.
Well, I move we table it. For a couple months. And let them gather up their bids and give us an alternative.
The motion on the floor, do I have a second?
Is that a table till a date certain?
I was gonna say 2 months. Let's get their act again. Give them time. I think it's a good thing to do. Could be less, but won't make it less.
I mean, I
2
just,
months, it gives it time before
months
the
of
tourist
water
season
main.
comes, and maybe it's too long. Do it
so,
a month.
sorry, we don't have a second. So
I was thinking your motion dies from lack of a second. I did not have a second.
If that's the case. Up to you guys. I'm just making, see if we can move on.
I'm just. You've set up specific things that the Board of County Commissioners can and can't do with respect to the Planning Commission's recommendation. And basically, you have to review the application and accompanying evidence before taking action, which if you felt like you didn't have enough evidence, that would be one reason to table. But I think it has to be a reasonable amount of time. And then the only thing you can do is grant, deny, or modify the application. You can't just say,
Right.
we're not gonna take action on the
No, we have
application.
to.
So that's why I wanted to make sure
That's a
in
good
that motion that we have a date that we're tabling it to.
And I don't have a problem doing that. I think that's a good thing to do. Cause I want to be fair to Marcy and Roger and the rest of the people. And also to Urbazon.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is I think the landowner has the right to have the Board of County Commissioners make a decision.
That's why, yeah, we do make. the decision.
Yeah, no, I mean, but, and yeah, that's why there needs to be a date certain in that tabling is because
Sure.
if we don't, then we could get into trouble for not making a decision.
I'll ask your opinion on this. As far as modifying the application or putting a restriction on it, would it be prudent to do an approval with the applicant being Dr. Ned? Entering into an agreement with the neighbors, on road maintenance.
Well, first of all, we don't have a copy of the easement in front of us.
So
that may already be accounted for in that easement. I mean, any good easement agreement is going to address road maintenance, and splits of costs of road maintenance. So I don't know.
No, you can't. do
that
that.
may already.
I would be cautious about requiring us requiring a landowner to change an easement that's already in existence, especially when we don't know what that easement is.
But they sure can do something more, because one of the things like Justin Drew commented on is like, I think not good because neighbors don't want it and they haven't developed a relationship with them. Well, what does that mean to me?
Can I
So,
tell you what that means?
well, that's-
We've never seen Dr.
well, that's my point.
We've never seen him. He's
We,
never been up there.
So we need more information.
Let's wait until I recognize you
Okay.
instead of just coming back in. Thank you.
So if we table it for a couple of weeks, month, and
I will make a motion that we table this until the first meeting in April. First Wednesday, BOCC meeting in April.
I'll second. That way we can discuss it.
I have a motion on the floor to table this until the April 3rd BOCC meeting. I put a date on that for you.
Thank you. That's what it is.
In your opinion, does that meet the requirements, Counselor?
I think that's a reasonable amount of time.
Okay. So I do have a motion on the floor, further discussion here.
My comment, I guess, to Paul and, the Gregs is try to work out the relationship. And, try to work that out at the best you can and come to some sort of a compromise of a, I don't know what that it entirely entails, but, when things come up here and then it's based upon. I have to weigh all these facts. I have to weigh all these, the hearsay between the parties. I don't know whether I'm getting all the facts. None of you are under oath. It's all I'm getting is your points of view largely, and it's hard to make a decision based upon just that alone. And I would rather the community make that decision than the three of us. So,
Well,
that's my only comment.
maybe another way to look at it is the relationship. It looks like Redondo has delegated that, ceded that to Paul. Cause he's the guy that really is gonna be the person that is gonna make sure whoever's there toes the line on whatever your desires are on the road or whatever. It would be voting for, if you guys are gonna get together and decide to pitch in on a road, that's up to you guys. But if that relationship doesn't exist, then I'm for sure, I can understand if that's the way it's gonna always be and you're gonna prove that. Then I would certainly not wanna cause World War II up there and get people arguing with each other. So that wouldn't be in the best interest of Urbizondo or you. So therefore it shouldn't happen. So let's give it a shot. I'll see what happens on the second. Let everybody have it.
Anything else from the table?
Nah, no, sir.
What do we hope? What is gonna change between now and that?
Marcy wants to get go ahead.
Well, the first thing that we have to research, because you're saying that there has to be an easement there. I don't think there's an easement. The only easement that is on that property, the Taylor Creek Highlands, is an electrical or utilities easement, which is in a portion of because the road is completely on our land and Roby's land and the other land. So I really don't think there's an easement. Now, the state of Colorado might have a say so, but there's not an we'll research that, and I think,
Kind of default easement, maybe, I mean.
I don't know, but there's not an easement.
Building permits couldn't have been granted. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I don't believe building permits could be granted without the landowner showing that they have a legal right to access their property.
That's right.
Which would require an easement. It doesn't matter if that road is entirely on your land or not.
So.
That easement would
So
be
we
granted by your
can we
predecessor.
go to the planning and zoning and get that information from them? Or who
That
do we go-
information would be in the
Should
county
be.
clerk recorder's office.
It's in your office, so we can check with Kelly to get that.
You know, and believe me, I care. That murder that we had out here, the multiple shooting, that was the same issue. There's a property that they had the right to get in there, and the guy up at the end didn't understand that, and so they battled over it. That's what we're trying to avoid here, and we're making a decision to. We don't want to instigate something that people start arguing about. So if we can clarify it up front, how is that access granted? What are the rules? Whatever. But you have to give them access to their property, Roby, as well as today and the other.
And we always have.
And that's by law. Mercy.
I believe your question is probably directed at the maker of the motion.
Well, all three of you really, I mean, where do we want? Cause if we're just kicking the can down the road here.
We're gonna get a little more
Well,
information.
that's what I'm asking is what information are we gonna need before we get back here in a couple of weeks? Or in a month?
Personally, I would like to see everybody understand what the rights are of access to get in there. And there's no law that I've ever seen, if you have the right to do that, well, even on that place where we had the terrible thing happen, that a guy can't have a STR, unless the covenants of that organization already have it established.
But we wouldn't, that's not a consideration necessarily, you know.
Unless they have one. I mean. what they-
That doesn't fall under
But
our
we know,
purview.
it's not our job to enforce code.
No, that's my point. If they already are gonna ban an STR in the first place, why are they wasting our time?
Well, it sounds like they're planning on filing a lawsuit
No,
if we approve it.
no, they're not.
That's kind of what I heard.
So that would be our only alternative, because we do have covenants against the STR. And if you allow the STR, that would be our only means of stopping the
That's the point.
STR.
And then in Urbizando, did he know there was a covenant on STRs or not? If he did, why are we doing it?
Well,
Should have done his due diligence.
that
Well, that's
doesn't,
my point.
that still does not matter to this board
Right.
if they have covenants against it, because we do not address that.
Right. And so that's gonna still be an issue because Urbizando, we can approve it. Why,
So, and so that does not, that part does not enter
I get it.
into our
no,
decision.
I understand that. Kevin.
Can I make a comment?
You may.
In some situations like this, the planning commission has approved what I've seen in a lot of the records. They approve it for a certain period of time to be reviewed on a complaint by complaint.
That's what I was
basis.
supposing.
I understand, and that's what we've done a lot in the past.
I know, and that's what I would suggest here because
We're still.
a lot of
in
stuff
favor
is
of
issue
that.
here.
Yes, sir. I'll get to you.
That's what I'm proposing, and that's what we'd like to, that's the end result here on the next meeting. Yeah, whatever they can produce, if it changes our opinion, then fine.
So what I'm hearing, for the benefit of the disputing parties here, is that the Board of County Commissioners sure would like for folks to get together and have a conversation about how this might work, even on a provisional basis, and maybe have them come back to us in April with that possible agreement, so that the board doesn't have to make a decision that people won't like. And that they can't control.
And that doesn't mean we won't, if it can't, and because some things don't get resolved, but
Have to make a decision one way or the other.
we will, and that's a good thing to at least give you the opportunity to consider it, because we can constrain how long that provisional issue happens.
This is kind of like a court case where a judge says, why don't you guys go back and try to mediate this and resolve this, because you don't want me mediating.
Yeah, that's true, because we could constrain it right now and vote to do it that way. Give you a chance and come back and say, all right, let's try it for 3 months, or let's try it for no months, but you can come back to us with that and then we'll act on
Anything
it.
else?
That makes it a little better, I think.
No,
You good?
I'm good.
Okay, so I do have a motion on the floor. We'll move to public comment on the issue at hand. Mr. Gilbert.
Yeah, Judge Judy, very good comment. Anyway, in my gut, I get the feeling here that the board would be in more legal
Hot water.
if a permit was denied based upon projected, assumed, whatever, future activities.
That's true.
It's kind of like denying a person the right to buy a property in a neighborhood for whatever reason, just because the neighborhood doesn't really want short-term rental there. So to me, the obvious solution is, since there are no violations currently, there are no actual reported facts to go from. The permit gets approved, and the neighborhood's recourse, of course, if the short-term rental then turns around and violates the nature of the permit itself. The covenants are a different story, of course, because they can be enforced by the association and make the approval of the STR a moot thing.
Right.
So I'm concerned that the county might get sued because we didn't approve it.
Thank you.
What it was.
public comment.
Well, the only further comment I have, and correct me, Paul, if I'm wrong. This is the third time that this has gone through. The first time it was denied because of they were running an STR
Illegally.
illegally. The second time, Paul was you came on the second one, you came on, he was the manager. And we had we had 6 months of nothing, and we'll write this up, we'll get it done. We have 6 months of the STR, the short-term STR, under Paul's guidance. That we had trespassing, we had overflow of cars. I mean, we got accused of not doing anything else except watching the cars go up and down. But so Paul was there for that 6-month trial from the second. And then the third one, this is the third one because it was turned down. And so Paul was there for all this traffic that we had, the trespassing that we had.
I don't remember it being a full STR. It never was. Those complaints were because they thought it was an STR and they were trying to treat it.
It wasn't an SDR, but he was in charge after the first initial one.
I don't know.
Weren't you in charge?
Can I address that? Or is it?
Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay, you may speak.
Okay, there were never any SDRs since I've been in control. And when he stated that whether he rented or not beforehand is relevant, he did have it advertised as an SDR. He was in violation. I told him, we're going to have to wait a year. Let's do long-term. We've done long-term. I think the most vehicles we've ever had up there since I've been there, been 3. Other than maybe somebody coming in and visiting for the afternoon and leaving. That's on the long-term stuff. That hasn't happened to my knowledge. I've never been contacted by the sheriff's office for any trespassing incidents. As far as, and like first time I told them, yeah, you're gonna get voted down because in their eyes you violated the ordinance, and you technically did, even though you didn't receive any money.
They did.
So take it, we'll try next year. We did, we got turned down. Most of the stuff that happened was prior to my employment and contract with him. To my knowledge, other than I'll address the diesel truck, it was supposed to be parked up to the top of the hill. It wasn't. I wouldn't have told you to park it on the road, but anyway, that's neither here nor there, it's passed. None of my other clients have had complaints with the county that I'm aware of. The only one that I've had a call on, y'all revoked his license because he was using my name as his agent and I was not his agent. And y'all pulled it.
Yeah.
And I applaud you for doing that. You should have. There's a violation. None of my other clients are in violation. I make sure, like even with the long-term stuff, I had them download OnX maps. So they can look, they will walk property, pull this app up, it's free. You got great cell service up here and you stay on this property or walk the road. But don't cross over the property lines. And I have had, everybody's told me they will do that, so. And I haven't had any phone calls from anybody. The only phone call I've had was Ann called me one time. I had a plow guy that inadvertently put some snow on her property. I fired him. And I've got another guy that's doing it, and he's done a lot better job. And Brad called me one time, said there was a woodpecker beating Ned's house to death. That's the only phone calls I've had, so. Other than that, thank you very much.
All right. Any other public comment on this issue? Let me check online. No hands raised. So a motion on the floor to table this until the April 3rd BOCC meeting. And hopefully they can come to some sort of resolution before that.
Or more.
Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. That motion carries.
Well, thanks for the information.
Everybody okay for right now? Move ahead.
Yeah.
Need a break. Yeah. Next item. Dorothy, thank you.
Hey, Dorothy. Dorothy. Find that provisional one we did. Just find that provisional STR that we did. How much time you got recommend? And let us see what we did. You brought up a given provisional permission, find that.
Oh, like
Yeah,
a year with,
whatever it was.
there's a lot of them.
I know, just whatever it is, because we give them provisional approval pending respond and what the result was.
I haven't had any that I've ever kept in Smith.
Okay.
So,
Right.
a lot of them have been on a complaint basis on them. Does that answer your question? You want me to get you some examples of that?
I want to see where we gave them in writing, you're approved to do this pending compliance with blah, blah, blah.
Provisional approval of the STR, not necessarily.
Right.
Just
For-
examples of what we've done.
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay, next item. Consideration, making Custer County a non-sanctuary county. You brought that, sir.
So this was, brought to me by a citizen of this county, and, Bill's here now, so, we can discuss this, been looking at, I've had a lot of emails on this subject, as I'm sure you guys have. You guys have been copied on a lot of them. I just got a hold of, or Buck just got a hold of me this morning. He showed me what Fremont County has signed, and I guess, the city of Silver Cliff has signed something very similar. And it's not so much declaring themselves a non-sanctuary city, but a limited resources and prioritizing the citizens of Silver Cliff over any other illegals or any other immigrants or anybody else for that matter. So
It was modeled after Fremont County, is that right? And Silver Cliff modified that.
that is correct.
The Fremont County Commissioners already signed there.
Yes, they passed theirs, I want to say last week.
Do we have a copy?
But I can't-
You have a copy?
I have a copy of-
You got that, but what?
So Fremont
How much
was
different
emailed.
is it from Fremont?
I believe it's essentially identical, other than we've just changed county to town and so on and so forth. What I would suggest is if that's something you guys want to do, it might make sense for us to have a resolution in front of us to.
Yeah, I would, that's what I was gonna get
Okay.
to.
And do you want me to take the Fremont County resolution and essentially redraft it to Custer County?
I think that makes sense.
That's, I think we would,
Okay.
we would agree upon.
Let's see what they did, and if there's anybody else, we'll find out. I know they were looking up, Shady County, is what I've heard, I don't know.
El Paso signed theirs.
El Paso.
5-3 or whatever it was. I think, if I remember correctly.
I know the El Paso County Commissioner, but I'll ask for that
Okay.
copy.
Okay. So
That's resolved.
I'll go ahead and put something together based on Fremont. If you have.
I'll
other
get El
examples,
Paso to you.
give me.
And then, so then we can put it back on the agenda to be addressed once you get something.
Next, just put it on next week's agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will look.
And you'll send that.
Don't have a motion on the floor for public comment on that yet. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the one that requested that item, that's what I wanted to.
I will go ahead and let you speak. Go ahead.
So, in all honesty, I wanna make sure I didn't overstep my bound. I'm not a legal guy. Okay, my intent when I asked for this to be put on the agenda, and I could be all wet, so you could just let me know. My concern, when I put this on, that I wanted to address, it's my understanding that the state of Colorado is ready to drop off in West Cliff a bus with 150 to 200 immigrants. And I read what's going on in the nation and stuff, and I know where I live, you know, there's a lot of people that have cabins that they only come up, you know, in the summer, or, you know, they're vacant. And so my concern is first of all, I try to be a non-violent guy. I mean, I don't carry a gun, I don't want to shoot anybody, I don't hunt, I don't want to do any of those sort of things. But I'm concerned is, you know, if I look at what's going on, if they come up, these people seem to have no fear. You know, and they do what they want to do. And quite honestly, it scares me. You know, so my concern is that what happens if they just come up and start pitching tents on the bluffs or wherever, you know? And my intent was to do something that we empower the sheriff's department to be able to tell these people you can't be here. So, I mean, that may not even be the intent of a non-sanctuary city. So like I say, I could be all wet, but that's what I was thinking when I asked you to put it on the agenda. Because quite honestly, to have them come up, I'm not ashamed to admit it, it scares me.
I've had the conversations with both OEM and the sheriff. What are we gonna do? What are our plans? What do we need to get prepared for? What do we need to start doing? And I'm glad you brought up the vacant cabins, because the sheriff does have a program with the posse that people can register their vacation homes or second homes or whatever. And the posse will go around and they'll inspect those places and make sure they're all safe, and they report it back to the owner. So I've started those conversations and trying to come up with some plans with OEM is, what do we do? What do we need for resources? If it's one bus, if it's two buses, if it's just a van of 15 people, what do we do? So.
Yeah, and Lynn, let me.
I think it's worth bringing
comment
up.
on that too. Thanks for bringing that up. Sanctuary, what we have here, but you don't see, is what the counties have done is a good way of meeting it and have that discussion. We can have that discussion then, but and especially if we can get both El Paso and what the Fremont County guys did, and then we can have a good discussion on how tough a restriction we need to make or not, maybe. Based on that, and that in order, we're not voting on anything right now. All we're gonna do is get more information. Thanks for your comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't want to just say, hey, we're a non-sanctuary county.
What
That doesn't do anything. So addressing some of these issues, like what is addressed here due to our lack of resources and what's in those things, and that will, Dan will be putting that together for us to look at, so. I'm hesitant, sir, because we don't have a motion.
We don't want.
Public comment was already.
I did allow him because he's the one that brought it.
Yeah, he's the one that asked for it to be on the agenda. That was.
So,
We can say anything you want when we get it.
Can you
back
bring it
on.
during regular public comment?
I will lose its impact someone, but.
Well, we're gonna have this on the agenda next week, so we can have that discussion next
Yeah,
week as well.
I was thinking maybe that could be circuit. It's kind of stupid.
Thank you for your patience. Okay, so we will have that on the agenda for next week. Next item is a consideration of the payment to the district attorney for reimbursement of court costs. That was brought to us, was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, I brought it up.
Yeah.
And Dan also had comments on, because he'd been working it. And at that point, he pointed out it was something we are obligated to do, and that's why we brought it in here to vote on. You got any other thing to say, man?
Just for the public's edification. State law requires that we, the counties in the judicial district pay for the costs and expenses of the district attorney and their staff doing their job. And there were two deputy district attorneys in primarily working out of Chaffey County who had ethics complaints filed against them and who had to hire their own lawyers to represent them with respect to those ethics complaints. Those ethics complaints were eventually dropped, which in interpretation would indicate that that means that there was not a finding that they had violated any ethical rules with respect to those ethics complaints. There is a state Supreme Court decision that goes the other direction with respect to a district attorney in Los Animas County a few years ago, who was found to have violated a number of ethical laws and who tried to get reimbursed for his expenses in defending those ethics complaints. And the Supreme Court said, no, the counties don't have to reimburse you for that because you were found to have violated the ethical rules. But in that same decision, the Supreme Court kind of said, but if you had been found not to violate those ethical rules, the counties would have had to reimburse you. So we have a bill of about $10,000 and Custer County's portion of that bill is about 600 and change, I think. And I think we have an obligation to pay our $600 and change share of that under the way the statute's written, that we provide the reimbursement for the costs of the district attorney's office. And these are costs these attorneys have incurred.
Right, and then the only thing I'll add to that is, he said we are obligated for all expenses, the DA, that's their rent, where they're gonna, our office is, how they conduct business, on everything, their wages. And every year we meet with and understand what their requirements are, just like we meet with people that need money from the county for other things, and decide whether it's reasonable and negotiate what are they really doing and are they doing their job to earn it. So we really keep a tight hold on that money for the citizens.
I will also add that there is a separate ethics complaint currently pending against the district attorney herself.
Yeah.
That has not been resolved.
Right.
And so we are not the request is not with respect to that complaint.
Right.
Or the expenses related to that complaint. Because if there is a finding that she did violate the ethical rules, I think my recommendation would be we not consider any reimbursement of those expenses.
Yeah.
So we put in the budget exactly what the DA's budget is, and we pay monthly invoices.
Yeah. Right.
So if I've got to pay another $600 more, I'm gonna have to do a budget amendment resolution to transfer that money.
Yeah, the problem is this money didn't come out of the DA's office. It came out of these individual lawyers' pockets.
So
His point,
And it wasn't something that the DA's office could have anticipated. I
no, we
think.
understand that. His point is that.
Yeah, I know, I realize
One
we've got,
budget,
we
so we've got,
may have to
just
do a resolution.
mechanically, we have to do a resolution to transfer it out of the general fund somewhere.
Because I want that to be another ledger line that this was paid to
You ought to have
staff
a
of the DA
DA line.
and make it I mean, I could pull $600 out of anywhere, but it should come out of there.
I understand.
Yeah.
So do we vote on it and then I come with a resolution?
Well, I wonder if, in theory,
Probably
don't we do those resolutions kind of towards the end of the year? To just,
Well, I
Only
don't
if,
know if I
but
wanna-
during the year, we've done it in the past.
Okay,
As it came up,
I understand.
and we have to make a resolution.
I'd like to do, if we have to make any of those, I'd like to do them at the end of the month.
okay,
It cleans up our books, it makes them reconcile out, so.
I'm fine with that if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, they waited this long. $600.
I mean, yeah, we're not the big fish here. Fremont is really the one that's gonna
3 months on the hook.
be on the hook for several years.
So is this something we should just table till the end of the month? And we have
I
the
think we can
resolution
vote
right
that.
after
I
reimbursement?
think we can vote to pass it.
Okay.
Then we have the resolution on how we're gonna handle it.
Yeah. I'm fine either way, yeah.
All right, well, then I'll make a motion to make the payment to the to the district attorney for reimbursement of court costs.
I'll second. Our share.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor to make a reimbursement to the individuals from the district attorney's office for reimbursement of court costs
And attorneys.
and attorney's fees. Any further discussion here at the table?
I'm looking for what that split out was.
I have a letter, but it didn't have the dollar amounts in it here.
Statement.
Oh, here it is.
It's there. I think I forwarded it.
$601.71.
The total was 10,000 even.
No, the total was 10,501.
Our share was 6.
Yeah, our share is 5.73% of that.
So the total cost of our share would be $601.71.
Which gives them an extra penny.
Yeah.
We rounded up.
And do you want that in the motion?
Yeah,
600.
600.
601.71. Please,
Any further discussion here at the table?
that's what.
Public comment? Seeing none, those in favor of reimbursing the district attorney's employees for court costs and attorney fees in the sum of $601.71 signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Next item would be the consideration of scheduling another closed employee meeting. When we had the one prior, we had discussed doing those on a quarterly basis. We're about out of our first quarter of this year. And I would like to see us have another meeting.
It's an all hands meeting.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, sir. What dates work best for you guys? And the 4th and the 5th don't work.
Sorry. Oh, you're looking at April?
No.
4th and the 5th, because they're already gone.
Yes, sir.
I'm with you now. I was ahead of you, but now I caught up.
Put on that.
11th and 12th.
It's the best time for our elected officials and other people. What do you think, Kelly?
Are you gonna do 5 o'clock again?
Probably.
I think that works good.
I would say any day but a Monday. Mondays are kind of bad.
They're a pretty busy day for you guys, so, okay.
Let's do it Thursday, and if it works.
So would you like to?
Oh, that's true. Let's do Tuesday. Tuesday sounds good. 19th.
I'm good with that.
Oh, yes.
It should be done. If we're over.
In the-
I might not work it out.
Yeah, let's do it in the courtroom if we can get to courtroom. You have an in there, don't you?
Sure.
5 PM.
Yes, sir.
5 PM.
Got it. Okay.
And then consideration of a letter of support for the broadband partnership BEAD grant.
Is that in our handout? Look at it. We just have the hard copy.
It's.
You've got the,
It's in your.
I know it got sent, but where is it? It's not with your.
Sent it yesterday
Yesterday.
morning, about 9:30.
the copy I have today, the only difference is it has all 3 letterheads between
Right.
Silver Cliff, West Cliff, and
That
Custer
was
County on it.
thing I saw different.
And I
Uh,
think it's got the 2 signatures. I don't think the one I sent yesterday.
And has the 2 mayors' signatures, does not have ours yet.
Okay, I'll bring this up because I'm the kind of the joint program manager for the beat broadband program that we have in the county. And this is a request for a letter of support in order to apply for a grant to help augment what we've got going on. It's a BEAD grant, broadband. Can't remember what those things are. Anyway, it's the broadband grant. And so this is a partnership letter that each of us, Silver Cliff, Westcliff, and us are signing. And you got the hard copy here to sign. I move we sign it. Letter as requested.
I would second that motion. Discussion. Anything else?
No dollar amount attached to it.
No, it's just the actual grant that they're going after for the max that they can.
The third round of grants. They have been unsuccessful in 15 to this day. Partnership includes county, the two towns, in conjunction with Hilltop and this consultant.
Mark Carmack.
Mark consultant.
And this was, I think the last thing we had was West. I didn't make it.
We have them last budget, but we have it always there since.
But it's
Our
that,
program and
it's the line from Wetmore up to.
It is, it involves middle mile and final mile, the last mile.
involved.
Refer to that. This program, and then basically the middle mile section would be from the, the line, parts of the line in here. Down 69, and finally, Texas Creek.
Texas Creek and down to Washington.
And then I put all of the redundancy, and then the final mile is the house.
We already have second seat on support. So I think that. And the government's right. I won't say anything.
So I do have a motion on the floor.
I'll say.
Like I said, I'm just
Okay.
any other discussion?
No, it's good to remember. Lucas is right. Where we were at.
Public comment. Kevin? Yes.
Does that mean to the house or copper?
They're running fiber to the house.
Oh, great, that's good. Good answer.
Fiber in the road ditch and copper to the house doesn't do us any good.
Well, that's what CenturyLink did, Lucas.
Yeah.
I know, it's exactly what they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when you get the speeds like I have in Wetmore.
Well, that technology is at least 30 years old.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
No fool.
Okay, any other public comment? Mr. Hedberg.
Yeah, thank you. And I couldn't quite hear, was this part of I was at the meeting, I think that Mr. Cantor is referring to, but was this part of the grant, the kind of loop part of it, or is this just the one going down Hardscrabble?
The loop is Hardscrabble, and 69 from Walsenburg to Texas Creek.
Okay. Yeah, so I've written about this, and I like the idea of a loop because right now we don't have much of a system. Even with Starlink, you need to have some ground-based. I would say, though, the cost of trying to take it to the individual parcels, I mean, we're talking anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000 per parcel on that parcel part of it. So I do think that when you guys move forward, even if you agree to pursue this grant, really focus on the loop part because that's something that we need. This idea that we're going to spend that amount of money to, say 40,000 per parcel is just it's an obscene waste of money when there's other options out there. So just really start focusing on the per parcel costs if we're going to go that route, or if we're going to focus more on a loop through Texas Creek or Walsenburg. Because I do think that loop part of it is really crucial moving forward. So thanks a lot.
All right, thank you, sir. I guess I'd comment a little bit. I think part of those discussions have centered around that, and so fully realizing that the towns will probably, you know, as far as the house, the towns will benefit more from that. That'll be the first build out when it gets to that phase. Everybody else, depending on the grant process and what's provided on that, because the less dense you are, the higher the cost goes. So
I'll echo that because that's always been the intent, Jordan. This is only the fiber up, as we pointed out, in the city, that both towns and are already, Hilltop's already dragging fiber into the houses today. And this will allow for redundancy and able to handle an outage a lot better. The next tranche of grants will go to the rural areas where it makes sense. There are some populated areas like Lake Louise, for example. So that'll be other grants to follow.
okay. Anything else before I call the vote? That being the case, those in favor of signing the letter of support for the broadband partnership lead grant, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. That motion carries. Do you have any other additional items of business?
Well, I want to bring up one point. The Navajo Indian Nation has decided, and I'll get details on it, that to probably give us back that hangar space. It will cost, but I'm going to work that with them. I'm not quite sure how that's going to fall out. But
Okay.
good news is they're working.
We have to survey that one too.
No, it's already surveyed.
Okay. Because I was wondering if that cost was gonna go up.
No, the second part of the survey will cover it.
Okay.
Probably shouldn't use the word lease on that because that one.
It's not a lease, yeah, it's a purchase.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, no additional items of business. Public comment. Mr. Gilbert.
Yes, regarding the, item that was brought up, regarding the reading of information that suggests a bus migration from Denver is gonna go out and about in the state. First of all, as the state of Colorado has decided to address the, humane crisis that's been foisted on Denver by the governors of Texas and Florida, then more power to the state of Colorado. Should the issues in Denver become such that the state decides that the rest of the state could help out with that? As a county of the state of Colorado, we are an administrative and a political subdivision. Therefore, if the state legislatively or executively dictates a process whereby certain numbers of immigrants are distributed around to the various counties, the counties are obligated to administer that action. So a resolution makes no sense to me. What makes sense is sort of the brief thing I heard from Dan was that Fremont and Silver Cliff have adopted a letter of description, if you will, of the availability of resources, the concerns over vacant properties, the issues of availability of law enforcement, all these kinds of things that would meet into what the state would consider when they move people around, if they do that. I think that is a great idea because we would need help if we're going to have to do that. We don't have necessarily the resources to completely take care of ourselves, let alone any additional folks that are brought in. However, should that happen, should a some number of migrants it be decided that some number of migrants be brought into Custer County and or funds be associated with all of that. I would sincerely hope that the good citizens of Custer County would welcome those people who are moving for their lives into the county and hopefully take care of them as we would anybody else. Now, the last thing I wanted to say is, as far as I can tell, the last meeting of the Board of Health was in November 8th. You are therefore about a month out of your requirement to meet every 3 months. So I would suggest you get that meeting held in a hurry or give up the Board of Health responsibility because you just don't have the time to take care of it.
That's what we did. We're gonna do.
You're not
That's
gonna
right.
be the Board of Health any longer?
No, we're gonna do the meeting in the next, what is it, 2 weeks?
Yeah, you're a month late already.
Yeah, but that,
So, you
understand.
don't have enough time, obviously, to do the Board of Health. So I would suggest you create a Board of Health.
I'm gonna, Jim, just on that last point, I'm gonna do every 3 months. And I'm just gonna set the meetings up and have them on our schedules.
That's what we did.
Because we,
You didn't.
it wasn't on my calendar anyway, as to every 3 months. So,
That's right.
That's what the law says, so.
okay.
And actually, we set it up for every 2 months initially.
But you didn't have.
But
a meeting with Renata.
Okay, that's
Doesn't
enough.
matter. I got it.
Yeah.
And that's my job to set that up.
All right, well, I'll let you do.
I don't want you already overloaded.
Go ahead, sir.
You got the timer set?
I'm working on it. Go.
I got here a little late. I was curious about how the finance department was coming along. And what the state of affairs are there. Did we get a good report on that?
Well, I gave a report,
You
I
missed it.
guess, whether it was a good one or not, is, I guess, up to interpretation, but I can send this to you. What
That's
I
fine.
basically said.
It's on YouTube.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Get your chicken coop ready.
Address the board. Thank you.
What is the conditions of the credit card thing? Is that where we're kind of at?
So I've got Vernon going through UMB right now. Kirkpatrick stopped. It's closed. We'll go back through those. UMB is what we're currently using. So he's gonna go back to when we started carrying balance. And he's gonna look into our accounting system, and go, who made their payments, full payments for their portion of their bills out of their department and who didn't. And we're gonna start tallying up who owes what on UMB. And we're gonna get that squared away first. And then we're gonna start going back through Kirkpatrick from the beginning of when we started carrying balances.
When was that? When did that?
It was prior. It was
2017, I
prior to
think.
22 that we started carrying balances, but I need to go back further into the archives.
So 2017 looks like when the credit card rules and regs came up through the county. I had no idea. I had no idea that that even existed. So I'm learning. So all of it, what you're doing is one layer of accounting for the money that was spent. Is that a breakdown of receipts as an individual sign for them? How does that break down in the responsibility of each of those credit cards?
So we'll have to go through all the receipts too and see what's there. What do we have for receipts?
So we're
What
talking
departments?
maybe
are there?
50 receipts,
No, probably more than 50,
100,
200. I don't know.
5,000. How far are we
Could
gonna
be,
go
could
back?
be for Kirkpatrick.
So that was one of my concerns as looking at this from, because I don't get to go look at this stuff. I don't have your guys's, you know what I mean? I don't get to look and see what's going on. My next question is the software being used well enough now to help reconcile the cash?
We're cleaning everything up. It's gonna take us some time. to clean it up.
Okay, so when you say we're cleaning everything up, are we adequate enough to get the ledgers and the software where it makes it applicable for somebody to sit down and actually do the journals and then bring the double entry bookkeeping down in balance? Do we have that capability yet?
We were able to do it for 22, other than the lease amortizations aren't in there, they're just based upon the payments. And, and Lisa Redlands Consulting got us through making sure everything net zeroed out, and then balanced against and was correct against what the auditor put into the state. So we're able to do that. And that's what we're gonna start working on 23 as well.
So that was 2022?
That was 22.
So all those credit cards were reconciled with all that?
So the credit card payments went out, what payments there were, but we carried balance from 22 into 23, right? 12,000, 16,000, whatever it happened to be. And from 21 into 22, there was some amount there. I don't remember off the top of my head. I looked at January's 22 statement and, whoa, we're carrying balance, but we'll have to go back through those and see which department owed what and what are we gonna do with that money? Or is it gonna go back into contingency? What paid the balances out? I don't know, right? That's.
Well, that's kind of what I'm asking.
Into that.
As a trustee individuals, you guys are trusting the public's money. Reading the statutes, you're held to one hell of and it's a bigger behavior. If it's your company, you can willy-nilly it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
In this, I'm not done. Sorry, knew that was coming.
Yes, sir.
Bill Parker. It should be clear to all of us at this point that there's a significant public interest in the county's financial management problems and accounting problems. And I think that going forward, there's gonna be just as much, if not more, interest on the part of the public in how those problems get addressed and fixed. And in that regard, I think that the process that is taking place, and congratulations for hiring what appears to be a pretty highly qualified accounting consultant. But the process that this person, Ms. Hemmons, is using going forward, I think to meet the needs of the public, needs to be completely open and transparent. That's the best way, in my mind, that the commissioners and Ms. Hemmons can meet the needs of the public for information on how these problems are getting fixed. And I think to achieve completely open and transparent information, we need firsthand information, not secondhand information. And while I appreciate Commissioner Epps' weekly reports, I think they are incomplete and not detailed enough, at least for this member of the public. And what I would suggest to achieve complete openness and transparency is that Ms. Hemmons, the Redlands consultant, attend these meetings, let's say twice a month, to give a business report on what is going on to solve these problems. And when I say a business report, I'm talking about what she's been looking at, what she's discovered, what fixes she has or plans to put in place, and what she's gonna look at next. And I think, to me, that is the best way to address the public's need for information on what is a very crucial and important process here to get our financial books in order. And I would ask the Board of Commissioners to give consideration to that suggestion, to having her attend these meetings a couple of times a month and give a 10 or 15-minute report firsthand on what she's been doing and what's next and what is it going to cost. I appreciated Commissioner Epps' clarification of the process so far and the fact that it will be broken down into multiple phases. But from a business standpoint, what I would like to see is, rather than just forging ahead, which we appear to have done in terms of reconciling 2022, that the phase begins with a phase plan. That's what I'm sure Ms. Hemmons does when she goes in to do an audit for a school district. She gives them an audit plan and an estimated cost. That should be part of each phase that we're looking at. And I'm a little concerned at this point that she's working from her office in Grand Junction. I can understand that on occasion, maybe when she's going to spend a day just plowing data into a database and not really interacting or have a need to interact with people. But she's going to be more effective and more efficient if she's here working on site. And I would like to see more of that. I don't know what the plan is going forward for her working here or there, but I would like to see her working here as much as possible. So I urge you to give consideration to my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nadine Peterson, I'm wondering, what is the current status of progress being made on hiring a full-time real finance director for the county?
I'll answer that for you right now. Nadine, we have, we put that, the applications are out, still online. We're not gonna shut it down, request to posting things. And in addition, it's on the website, still there. We've only got 2 right now, that we haven't had the committee take a look at yet. And I reported, you heard what I reported before, of the 5 that they did do, I think only 1 was marginal. And so that's sitting there, or 6 of it, 1. So we're not gonna waste the time right now. We're gonna bank those 2 that we've got. Additionally, I've talked to Lenny. Lenny has a, what is it, the professional organization? CPA, CPAs, and we haven't hit that one yet. I'm gonna meet with her today at 8 o'clock tomorrow to get an understanding, because what they can do is take that and run it through all the professional CPAs in the state. And we'll get a better bank, I hope, of applicants that might be available. So I'm gonna meet with them this tomorrow morning. One reason I haven't brought it up yet, we hadn't gotten the time, but you said the time was.
They sent us an invitation.
Okay. So that's what I did, because I want to get more for us to give to the committee to give us back, so we can get it in front of us to decide what we're going to do. What, with the next meeting, we'll take a look at what their qualifications are. So that's where it is right now. And the plan is going forward is to part of the phase that Bill brings up. Not only is this Lisa going to do the troubleshooting on what the problem is, she's also going to have to be responsible to make sure that our system's working and that she can transition it into the new finance director, bring them up to speed, so there's not a beat missed once we start, because we got to do business as we're pressing down the road, fixing things. Still got to write checks to the employees. We got to keep doing our job. So And we want to bring that new person in as soon as we can. So if it takes several months, we're gonna do it and we're gonna get the right qualified person in. And if this doesn't work with, I think, based on what I've heard, what we've offered so far for a wage is not a bad thing right now. We'll see what this new avenue yields for us, and if it looks like we need to consider doing what we talked before, maybe we have to increase the top end a few $1,000. We'll see. That's the plan right now. We're not gonna let that, there's no water, grass growing under our feet.
You still on the floor?
Okay, another question. Joy Anderson, she was here and she had gone over to talk with Vern about, seeing how the credit card situation was being handled or looked at. And so he said it would be okay for her to go over this week to actually look at that. And he was saying that he had to ask you, Lucas, for permission. And I was wondering, is that true, or is that something that, do we need permission to go over and look at what is being done with our tax money?
You want me to handle that?
Yeah.
Here's the deal. This is a business. It's like any other business.
That's not.
No, except for the visibility of the transparency, which is necessary. So in order not to disrupt the business like we have to do, so yeah, absolutely, you need to, you can see it. But we've got to make sure he has the time to do it at the right time, rather than just moving in. That's why we have to take a look and make sure that, the employees can do their job. Because if everybody came in and kept bothering Kelly in within a straight line, she's already busy. So we gotta say, all right, you gotta be able to see her sometime. But let's try our best to do it with the best we can to not disrupt the business that she has to do too. And Vern's a great guy. He'll bend over backwards to make it happen.
So you're saying, yes, we can go in?
Absolutely, if it's scheduled.
Just don't want to disrupt.
Is,
Well, if everybody comes in, pretty soon he gets nothing done.
Right.
In essence, this is
And
an
nobody
open
else would like that in our business.
Oh, no, you're right.
In essence, this is
Business
an
is
open.
public's business, and
Okay.
not everybody's.
You don't have the floor yet.
Let Dan say what he was gonna say, and then.
In essence, this is a request to inspect public records. The Colorado Open
Absolutely.
Records Act would govern how that process works and what can and can't be
Right.
inspected.
It's not an unreasonable request. Nobody would deny.
And I won't deny it. So.
But if it falls under that act, it needs to be an open records request, correct?
Yes, and the Open Records Act allows for inspections, not just give me a copy. If
Right.
they want to inspect them and not get a copy, that's also allowed.
For discussing.
Does that answer your question? Okay. Mr. Regal.
And so, this is reasonable, because all you're saying, Bill, is call Vernon, schedule a time to come in, so he can arrange his schedule. Hey, that's the right way to do it, man. That works fine.
I will say, I think an open records request, its form should
Put it
be
in writing.
filled
It's
out.
good to have it.
Because that allows him to compile the records that she's wanting
In advance.
in advance,
Sure.
so that she's not sitting there waiting on him to do it. I think that's more reasonable.
It's a good way to schedule.
Yeah.
Either we have an admin doing that, or have the request, so we don't have to pay an admin to waste time.
Yeah.
That's good.
Anyone else?
We only did the comment once, right?
That's correct. Mr. Hedberg.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things, speaking of core requests, I filed one a few weeks ago, and one of the things that I noticed was that Mr. Lenarigo and Mr. Bill Parker had chosen not to sign the county NDA, non-disclosure agreement, and instead had just instituted their own. I don't think they should be on that committee until they agree to an NDA that all three commissioners have agreed upon and that have voted upon. That, you know, I think they have a lot of experience and a lot to offer. At the end of the day, though, they can't just sign their own NDAs and then also be getting all of these personnel files. So maybe that's already been done, but until they sign an NDA that has been agreed on by the county, I don't think that they should be on that committee. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
So, Jordan here, this candidate. Bottom line is, we will work this with the HR after that was brought up, our new HR officer and Dan Slater here. And in fact, anything that is there is no NDA required right now for anybody to sign. Because what's going on today, we're already redacting everything that would be redacted in an open records request anyway. And the process is clean. So Dan, you want to comment on it?
Well, no, I think we've reached a détente
Right.
on that point.
Yeah. So, and
I
their
don't know that we need to
expertise
comment
is certainly
further.
needed. We don't need to comment any further there. Yeah.
One other comment, Bill. I did
no,
not,
it's okay.
Okay, I appreciate that you guys had taken care of that. I just thought that was something I had noticed. So I do appreciate it. Thank you.
but I did
Uh,
not
That's all right.
unilaterally create an NDA.
That's all right.
That's
I did not.
okay to add. That's a good point.
You asked me to and I did.
That's a good point. Thank you for
Okay.
doing that.
Yeah.
Any other public comment? Being the case, this meeting is adjourned at 12:35 PM.
Yeah, hey, Lynn, thanks for bringing that up. That's a very good point because what would be a reasonable, that's why we did that, is to take a look at a strong